IT consultant for Wellstream, a business consultant company. Today we are going to be discussing data privacy. Sorry, let me share this screen, please. Can everybody see my screen, please?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so today we are going to be discussing enterprise security, data privacy, and risk management. You see, this topic is actually very important, especially for companies that are big, and is extremely also important for companies that are small, especially companies that are growing, SMEs wanting to become enterprises, because the way you manage data and information in your company actually matters. Best practices. For example, when you look at hospitals now, they they protect their data extremely well, and they have strict rules for data, because you can imagine a sitting governor goes to an hospital and he does his test and he discovers he has a terminal illness and he leaks. It's just piece of information, letters, but that piece of information can cause a lot of chaos, and the integrity of the hospital will be questioned because it was there that the information was discovered. So this is a very important topic for everyone, being CEO, being a worker, because you can definitely be sacked by just revealing certain things and costing your company certain things. So let's get into it. Okay, learning journey. The things you are going to learn in these classes are data privacy and security fundamentals, um, web applications and IoT threats, international data protection standard, enterprise compliance strategies. So what is data privacy? This is the right for individuals to control how their personal information is collected, used, and shared. You see, most companies, especially IT companies, collect a lot of data, especially behavioral data. And what it means is that, for example, let me use TikTok now. As you are scrolling on TikTok, it's recording the amount of seconds you spend on each post, and each post is already categorized either dancing, funny, inspiration. So the more you spend time on one post, the more they give you that kind of post. So that's more or less like how they use the data by themselves, and it's a way to train and personalize your FYP, if I'm correct. Then the core principles and personal data belongs to individual, not the organization collecting it. You see, yes, this can be true, but there is no how you will eventually drop certain types of data. In fact, sometimes you'll be glad you dropped this data because, for example, you want to log into something and your password is and you forgot your password. Imagine you didn't give them your email or your phone number. How are you going to retrieve it? So um, data will be retrieved. How it is being used, and who is using it is and who is collecting it is actually the most important part. And your job is to make sure the wrong person does not, get hands on very sensitive data. Okay, what is data security? These are measures that you use to protect data, unauthorized access, and use and how data are destroyed. It may be, let's say, the company, you have customer care, and you're like, okay, every year or every 2 years, the backlog 2 year, like 2 years ago, should be cleared off the system, depending on your practice as a company. That's what will determine what you want to leave and for example, some companies, actually, for security reasons, some people might come to visit and they will scrap their name off, the log, because they don't want that data of him even or the person visiting to get into the wrong hands. Then the core principles that data security follows, safeguarding data integrity, confidentiality, and availability. This is exactly what I'm saying. Like, if you don't want people to know, do not write the data or do not log the data. Once you log the data, there is a very big chance, somebody will know. Then the key focus that data security analyst or professional focuses on is encryption, access control, and threat prevention. Then let me explain. For encryption, I'm sure a lot of you know what or have an idea of what you call SSL. You know, SSL is what your website use to encrypt data both in movement and in rest. Most website that doesn't have SSL cannot be an e-commerce website. You cannot be an e-commerce without having SSL because you are dealing with people's credit card. They will blacklist you immediately because your credit card information is not safe with you. So they don't want companies without SSL. That's one. Then you have access control. The rule of access control is give the barest minimum privilege to the worker or to the personnel, the barest minimum access. Do not give access for what they they are not supposed to have access to. For example, if you are working in an hospital and you're an engineer, and let's say you are using the EMR, which is the electronic medical record, as an engineer, you don't have any business with patients' data. So they would do it in such a way that they will only give you rights to maybe maintenance module in the EMR software, but you will never get to see patients' data because it's not your concern. You are not a doctor or a nurse, so you cannot have that level of privilege. Then you have threat prevention. You see, threat prevention comes in two ways. Some companies have in-house servers, and so that's what you call on-premise, and some have in the cloud, and some have both on-premise and in the cloud, and that's what you call hybrid. And this data, two of them are actually not protected the same way. For example, if you have um, a server in your company and your server room is in your company, first things first, how many people can enter that server room? Secondly, who is allowed to impute anything flash or external removable disk? Is it allowed? And another thing is, okay, your core server or your core switch, how many USB ports are open? Because like for example, the best practice is close all ports. All ports that are not being used, close it. Because somebody can come and just impute a network cable and connect it to his laptop and you have access to all your network. But if all those ports are closed, they cannot. They have to call the IT guys that know the password to the switch, to open it for you. Then configure it, then you can use any port from there. So that is how to prevent from the on-premise. But when you now talk of cloud, then you have things like CloudFront, you have things like Cloudflare. Cloudflare is also a platform that you use to protect your site, through your DNS. Because these things are important because if information that's not supposed to go out should go out, it's going to be a very, very big problem for the company. Okay, data privacy versus security. The difference is basically practical. Data privacy is about rights and choices. My data is mine. If I want to give you, I'm giving you for specific reasons, and you should not use it for more than the reasons you indicated you are going to use it for. That's why when you want to log in, when you are filling anything, you will see terms and conditions. They will tell you to tick it before submit. Even though you don't read it, you will still tick it. Those things written in those terms and conditions are actually the things they are telling you they want to use your data for. So if you don't read it or you don't follow it up, you will just think, okay, I just click something and I submitted. No, you didn't just you just give them permission to use your data in certain ways. Now, legal and ethical focus, and this still has to do with our best practice. For example, there was a year when iCloud had a data leak, and a lot of celebrities that had inappropriate photos that like the and all of that people very difficult and but the thing about it is that doing things together, the negative situation something that you can only really support and train people. But like I said, you know, people to come back, you know,
Sorry, Mr. Toby. Your audio is really low, and I think you should check it again.
yeah, so sorry about that. So sorry about that. You said I should take it again, right?
Yes, you're loud and clear now. Please go ahead.
Okay, so what I was saying is um for data privacy is about who who is using the data, why are they using the data, how are they using the data, what they are using the data for. Is it ethical or is it something that is going to harm the integrity of the person? So all these things now everyone has to be careful because there was an incident of when the hacked iCloud had a data leak and it revealed exposing pictures of certain celebrities, you know, and though it was not the celebrity's fault, but their data leaked through iCloud and there's nothing they could do about it. What people don't realize that data is not just about numbers. Data can be picture, can be video. We've seen how reckless people are doing sex stuff online and all being released and all those things. Those things are still part of data leak. If you don't want it to come out or you don't want people to know, do not record it. Very, very important because data is actually very funny and it has ways of moving around even though you don't want it to. Then for data security, it is about how these data are protected. Like I said, um, iCloud was hacked and they had the data leak, and that's where security comes in because you are not in charge of protecting, you know, the data. They are yours is just to write the data, you know, and they are supposed to prevent unauthorized entry by um you have various means. You have two-factor authentication. You also have what you call physical USB key. There's a type of key that once it is with you and you want to log in, to ask for that key, you have to insert it and all that. Then implementation focus. How are we going to implement these things that will not create, you know, a unauthorized entries? For example, I know Gmail does something that if you want to log in, it will tell you to accept from another code. So all these things are measures of, you know, data security. Okay, the foundation of data security. You have the confidentiality, ensuring the data are accessible only to authorized individuals. Like I said, lowest possible access. You know, what they don't need to know, they don't need to know. You know, don't show them what they don't need to know. Because once you do that, it's going to create problem because the wrong person is going to see the data one day. Access control and authentication, that's what we are talking about. For example, in the hospital, the reason why I'm using hospital is those are the places that have sensitive data, at least for, let's say, Nigerian standards, except for the banks. But for things that can affect individual without even money leaving your pocket now is now authentication. Now in the hospital now, most of the nurses do not share their passwords, because once you log in, anything that is done there, it will be logged that this is the person that did it. So most of the nurses don't share their password, because if somebody wants to do something dubious, they can use your login and do it. So it is very important you yourself know that my password is mine and I shouldn't give it out carelessly. Sometimes some people will have issues with their web developer or something, and the person will go there and go and crash it just because he has the username and password. So that is a very, very important, factor. Then you have integrity. Maintaining accuracy and completeness of data, version control, checks of audit trails. This is very important because in as much as data is collected, it is also read. Data is also analyzed. And if the data collected is in shambles, you cannot, read it. And this version control now talks about backups, when last did you backup, when was the last working database, very, very important. Checksum also is like an hash key that is tied to that particular data or activity. You know that, okay, with this series of numbers or series of combinations, it is linked to this particular, set of data. Then you have audit trail. Yes, audit trail means, who logs in, what was accessed, and how was it accessed. Then availability, ensuring authorized access when needed, redundancy, backup, disaster recovery. You see, this availability has to do with cloud, mostly cloud. When you talk of availability in on-premise, then you talk of maybe the server is down, maybe they took lights, or the UPS got burnt or something, then availability will be down. But when you talk of cloud, redundancy means how far is the server from who is receiving it. If it's very, very far, it's going to take longer time to get to you. Backup means, okay, what are the backups you have for this data and when last did you backup? The best practice for backup should be about 1 week, depending on how, depending on the flow of the data. Actually, that's what if you have a very large inflow of data, it is better to always back up as quickly as possible, because you can lose a large sum of data quickly if you don't do that. Then for disaster recovery, okay, how many servers are running? If you have two servers running, let's say one in, because when you are dealing with cloud, you have to drop, you can provision server in Netherlands, anywhere in the world. So let's say you have two servers, you have one in Netherlands, you have one in the United Kingdom. Once one goes down, you can easily just, connect the second one and it will start working. Like the data will be available to everyone. So it is very important you understand this foundation of data security, so that you will not be caught unaware when a disaster happens. Personal data and the need to protect it. Okay, personally identifiable information: name, address, social security number, date of birth. Protected, like I said, health information. I also said financial information. Biometric data is another important factor that a lot of people don't take into account, though it mostly cannot be replicated except through special means. But on a normal, regular day-to-day activity, fingerprints, facial recognition, and voice pattern cannot, be it cannot be replicated. Financial information: bank account, credit cards, transaction history. You see this now, most of all these data breaches, especially for financial information, is always in large quantity. It can even be as silly as a bank manager that likes dogs, and they will use an email of a dog for him, and you just click it and they will just take over his computer quietly. They won't destroy it, they will just be siphoning information, and they'll be using that information for anything they want. For health, like I said, releasing another person's health information can be disastrous. You know, you need to let them arrange for that and do it themselves. You are not supposed to do that for them. Now, key privacy principles. Now, you have to tell them, you have to tell people, these are the data we want to collect, and this is what we want to use it for. Very, very important. So they know what their data is being used for. That is very important. Choice and consent. They must accept and agree that yes, this is the reason you want to use the data, and I have seen the reason, and I agree with you that you can use the data this way. Access and correction. Allow individual view and update their data. Changing of email in your social media accounts, very easy to do, though you might need some extra verification to be sure that it is you. That is how has actually lock people out of their accounts. Basically, they literally gain access, change email, change all those things, and before you know it, you can't do anything again. Security. Implement safeguard to protect data, and this is done in two ways: when data is in movement and when data is at rest. I take I take responsibility for data protection. The thing about data protection is most companies, or let me say companies that don't take this serious, we eventually regretting it. There was a dating app, I don't know the country, that an hacker hacked their database, and they discovered that married men, married women were cheating on the app. And these hackers released all the information, and a lot of marriages were, scattered just because there was a data leak in a dating website. And the platform is actually supposed to protect people's data and not joke with it, but I guess they didn't think that could happen. And one thing about security is if you don't think it will happen and you don't make provision for it, it will definitely happen. Okay, data minimization principle. Like I said, collect only what is necessary. Don't collect more than what is necessary. For two things. One, if you collect extra data you don't need, somebody can easily accuse you. If there's a data leak somewhere, that is this person that collected, or is this company that collected this particular data. Now, two, it saves you space. What you don't need, don't collect, because what it means is that what you cannot show in your platform to the world that okay, this is the things about this person, don't collect it. You don't need it, and it saves you space too because your database runs on money. So you have to minimize data collection, so you minimize, how you spend money on database. The benefit is it reduces risk exposure. Like I said, unnecessary data means that you will not have unnecessary issues. If you collect data you are not supposed to collect, you are going to have issues. Like I said, low storage costs, simplified compliance, enhanced user trust. Regular data audit, purpose specification, why I'm collecting your data, retention policies, those clicks, the ticks that you click to continue. Yes, that's where all these purpose specification, retention policies, and secure deletion, that's where all those things are. But because we don't read it, most don't know. Common data security there, unauthorized access. I'm talking about hackers, phishing. Okay, phishing me, like I said, like I mentioned, the bank manager and the dog. That's where phishing comes in. They know he likes dog. They will just give him an email that shows one very fine dog. click here to see the dog in action, or click here to see the dog smile. Once you click it, it's gone. So data breaches, that's the one I explained about the dating website, that they had the data breach and a lot of marriages were cancelled. Then you have malware, viruses, ransomware, spyware. The three of them are actually different. Malware means malfunction software. It makes your system malfunction, but not all of them make them malfunction on the surface. Some are hidden processes. Virus literally destroys your computer. Ransomware does not destroy your computer on the surface, or it destroys your computer on the surface, but within the system, it is not yet destroyed. And what ransomware means is that once it's on your system, all the file system, all your file extension will become corrupt. You will not be able to open your files or access your files. Then you will be requested to pay a certain fee. Then they will give you something that you are going to do to regain your files. But there are simple ways to actually bypass ransomware. Then you have spyware. Spyware now does not do anything. Spyware does not do anything to you. They just spy on you to collect information. They won't, the insider trade, like I said, employee selling, misusing assets. Like I worked in an hospital that doesn't allow flash drive. They don't allow any employee bring flash drive to the company because they don't want anybody to take any result or information. Right. Then you have DDoS attack, overwhelming system to cause downtime. Now this happens between competitors, and they use what you call worms. They will infest a lot of systems. Let's say they can affect 1 million systems. Now, those systems on the surface will work properly, but they will be sending out requests to that server. Let's say the server can take 1,000 requests per second. Once the server is receiving, let's say, 5,000 requests per second, you are going to have a denial of service attack because the server cannot contain that level of, so the server is going to crash. And one thing about server when it crashes is it's going to default back to the original, that's the default username and password. So once that happens, an attacker can gain entry once the server becomes down, or once it becomes scrambled. Now, authentication versus authorization. Authentication is who are you, verifying user identity. Sometimes when you want to send large money through OPay, they will tell you we want to see your face. That's what you mean by authentication. Okay, it is the person. And the methods you use are password, biometrics, that's your fingerprint, security token. I mentioned that when I was talking of a flash drive, that's where the security token comes. Then multi-factor authentication, that's where you have Google Authenticator, where it generates 6-digit password for you, I think every 10 seconds. So when you want to log in to any platform that you have activated that feature, you have to input it within 10 seconds. Then it will, if you don't do that, it's going to generate a new one. If it doesn't do that, if you don't do, it's going to generate a new one. So it will always generate new, 6-digit numbers for you. The method, role-based access control, like I said, when I mentioned the engineer, it doesn't have the right to see what the doctors see. So that's attribute-based access control. All these things are still the same. What you can do, an engineer now cannot have the attribute to prescribe drugs. Access control list. Now, access control list means, okay, let's say this is mostly physical. Who can have access to the server? Unauthorized, where you see unauthorized staff not allowed, but only authorized staffs only. That means if you are not an IT person, if you are not an engineer, don't enter this place. Once you enter, you become a threat. Then you have less privileged principle. Like I said too, an engineer does not have any business having to see, patient's details or history, or a front office is not supposed to see what the accountant, is doing. Should not see the accountant's files or the accountant's module. Encryption protecting data at rest and in
Hello,
transit.
sir. Mr. Tobi, hello, sir. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Sorry,
Yes.
before you proceed, sir, please, I want you to clarify the difference between that role-based access control and attribute-based access control. I didn't quite get it clear, please. Role-based and attribute-based, please. I still want you to.
Okay. Okay, I understand. For role-based access control and attribute access control, let's say, let me use a doctor and a super user. A super user now, no, don't let me use a super user. A super user has access to everything. Let me use a doctor and let me still use a doctor, or let me say a doctor and a biomedical engineer, for example. These are roles. And within the roles too, for example, let me use for that now, the attributes that will be given to, they go hand in hand because the role determines the attributes given. For the role, you are an engineer, I'm a doctor. Once we are imputing your privileges or your access, the moment we click doctor, certain things we tick automatically, like read patient history, write patient history, read nurse this, read this. Those things now are called attributes. You can still, for example, what the head nurse would be able to see and view will be very different from what the let's say health worker, even if an health worker can use the system, they both care for the patient, but what they will have access to on the system, their attributes will not be the same. If you understand what I'm saying. Do you understand me now, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Can I continue, sir?
Yes, sir. Proceed, sir.
Okay, sir. So data at rest, stored on device or server, full disk encryption, database encryption, file level encryption. These things are very important. They are very, very important because database and data is more like a pool of information, and you must always, if at least somebody even wants to steal it, they should not just come in and see it, just the way it is. They should come in, at least see it scrambled, or they will need, and for example now, if you are very conversant with crypto wallets, now they will give you, I think, a 12 words password key phrase, and they will tell you that do not misplace it because they will not give you again. It's auto generated and it's yours. You see that 12 key phrase they're giving you now is what you use to decrypt your account. If you don't have it, nobody will open it for you. That's what they mean by these encryptions. There are different ways to go about it. The data is actually at rest. It's waiting for you to come and view it, but it will not just open to you. Even though you have passwords, you must have those key phrases. Without the key phrases, you cannot do anything. Then in transit, I mentioned SSL, that they use it to protect websites. Like I said, e-commerce websites, you cannot do anything e-commerce without having SSL. VPN too, virtual private network. Maybe you are doubting that MTN or Airtel, they are doing something with my data or something. You can use VPN. What VPN does is VPN connects you to another server in another place. So you connect there first, then that connects to your router, which is your MTN, before it goes out. So your MTN router will actually think, or MTN will actually think you are browsing from Spain or from whatever, because the browser has connected to the server on your behalf. That's where VPN comes in. Then for email, email email also uses TLS protocol, where SMPT too, where the email even is so bad that some companies, if you try and send email through certain IP address, it will not go, because probably their IP address range has been flagged. Sometimes that happens, especially when you are dealing with a lot of international clients. When you now log in through another email and through another connect to another ISP, that's internet provider, you will see that that email will now go smoothly. That's where email protection, because once it gets to that server and it sees your IP address, the server will actually bounce it back and it will reject it. Then data in use being processed, memory encryption. Sorry, okay. I want to move. Yes, memory encryption, secure enclave, homophobic encryption. So memory encryption now, in use now, there's what you call man in the middle. If you notice your Wi-Fi, for example, sorry, please, can you give me like 1 minute? I want to move from where I am. Can you hear me, please? Okay. Um. Now, there's what you call man in the middle attack. What man in the middle means is that somebody can be dropping on your network and you won't know. So when you don't encrypt your data in motion, or when you are doing anything, the person sees what you are doing clearly. That's where you have your Wi-Fi password, WPA3, WPA2, web key, and all those things. Those things are actually encryption methods where you know that the data is moving. You are using that encryption method to secure it, and if you don't have the password, you will not be able to partake in that. Even if you have it, you will not still be able to read the data, because it is being encrypted as everything is moving. But there are ways to actually also decrypt data. Now, privacy by design. This is when you are building, you are anticipating everything that is going to happen. This takes a lot of professionalism and a lot of experience, because a lot of people don't know that these things are very important. And like, for example, if you want to create, let's say, um, a fintech app now, you must get certain licenses, certain documents, certain approvals from certain organized body. For example, EFCC will tell you you must come and get anti-laundry certificate from us, and all those things. Data protection agencies will come at you, and you must also be compliant with them before they can even allow that, they can allow people use it. See what happened with CBEX. CBEX was a serious data problem, because there was not proper due diligence, so nobody even knew where the money went. So you have to be proactive. Any company you notice that is fumbling your data, or you are seeing that is not using your data very well, or you are suspecting them, please refrain from giving them or dropping sensitive information, even if they ask. So, privacy by default, as default, yes, automatically your data is supposed to be private automatically. Like, nobody should be able to see certain things except you. and nobody should be able to see certain things if you don't approve it. Only approved things should actually be seen. Embedded into design, privacy integral to system architecture. This now works with when you talk of data in transit and data in at rest. This is where you build it, because data in transit and data at rest is something you build into your application. You have to build the algorithm into your application so that, because for every endpoint the data gets to, there must be an algorithm or a mechanism that will, decrypt that data, then the system understands it. Without that decryption key or that description algorithm, it is impossible even for the system to read the data. Positive sum. Privacy and functionality coexist. Yes, just because the data is private does not mean they should not be able to use it. For example, you have Facebook now, or let me say any social login, your email is actually private, but you still have to use it to log in, even though it is private, they will not share it to anybody, or they will not share it on purpose to anybody. You still have to use it to log in. That's where the privacy and functionality comes in. The end-to-end security, like I said, that's when you have data in transit, data at rest. Now, data breach response. Once you know that there is a data breach, the first thing you need to do is to know where it is coming from. That's the first thing you need to do, to know where it is coming from. Once you know where it is coming from, then you isolate affected systems, probably removing them from the network. Most of the time, let's say if a system has a particular type of password that can affect the whole server, you have to remove that system from the network. You have to isolate it, work with it first, remove it, then connect it back. Because if your server should become corrupt, everything become corrupt. And if you don't have backup, there's nothing you'll be able to do about it. Assessment, determine scope, impact, and compromise data. This is actually extremely difficult to do, because except you can trace every single step they made, and it is somewhat difficult because a lot of people that can do it know how to hide. Most of the time, if you even check how they catch hackers and that and all that, they don't really catch them from the act. They mostly catch them from their lifestyle and the things they do after, because it is quite difficult to an extent. They can know the country the attack came from, they can know all those things, but the person, they most likely don't know. But they can start streamlining, and through lifestyle and all those things. Once they catch you, they will now check what you have done and check every other person that they are related to that has done. So they are even checking your own data to catch more people, if you understand what I mean. So when they see your lifestyle, that this person's lifestyle has changed from this to this, check accounts, check everything. Oh, he received large sum of money. All those things to our data they are reading to understand your activities. So all those things are actually very, very important, to them and all that. Like, for example, the lady in Abuja, the presenter that robbers wanted to rape, jump down, the way they caught some of them, they used the um, um, network tower close to where she was living to check everybody connected to that network tower, and from there they started streamlining. So most times they might not even know the person, but once they can determine, okay, this is where to search from, it is easier, because they too will have to read, data. And once they determine the impact and scope, it is very easy to, start repairing from there. But the compromised data, it is always very hard to figure out everything that was done. You can try to everything, but most of the time you cannot really, sometimes you don't even know it has happened until the data leak is public. Then notification inform affected individuals and regulatory authorities. This is important because let's say I'll use an example, hospital for example. You had a data breach, you didn't report to anybody. Then all of a sudden a governor that come to your hospital to do something is seeing his test result online. You were trying to cover it by not telling anybody. But now it is online. You cannot now say that it is not from us or we were hacked after. No, it's something you have to say at the beginning so that if anything should happen, yes, this guy said the authorities will even do, they said they were hacked. So yes, it's not really their fault. They reported it. But if you don't report it, you are trying to hide it, and the data comes out to public, you'll be in very big trouble. Then fix vulnerabilities and restore normal operation. You do this, you do this now when you've seen the issue, you've seen the fault, and you are like, okay, what do we need to do that we will know what and what do we need to do that this thing will not happen again. It is actually very, very important that it is actually very, very important that you do that. What happened? How did it happen? So that we will block it and because if you don't, it will happen again because they will come back and check if you've done what you're supposed to do. If you've not done it, they will hurt you again. And sometimes they always leave what you call backdoor. That's why you have to fix vulnerabilities and check everything because backdoor means a way that they can come into the system without doing so much. Analyze incidents and improve security measures. That's once you check the vulnerabilities, you are more or less like improving the security measures already and analyzing the incidents. Reward example of data breach. The incident, 147 million people were affected, exposed name, SSN, birth dates, addresses, driver license, unpatched vulnerability, delayed disclosure, 6 weeks. This is what happened, the incident that happened. Then the consequences, 700 million in settlement, CEO resigned, massive reputation damage, regulatory scrutiny increased. Now, the reason why these consequences were this severe is because of this last one, delayed disclosure, 6 weeks. How can you delay that level of incident for 6 weeks? You did not tell anybody, you did not do anything. Then when people's data leaked, they will start showing you that this is not what we agreed on. What is my data doing? Because once you have SSN, name, date of birth, you can open bank accounts, you can do a lot of things with the person's information. So they had to settle a lot of, even Gmail, Google is settling people. I think this December, they have a data breach issue they have with some US users, and they are going to settle them, I think, this December, if they've not even started paying them already. Then CEO resignation, you know, it will tarnish. In fact, that company is going to take the grace of God for that company to come back because nobody will do anything with that company again. All the 147 million people are not going to even use that platform again, except it is an essential platform. But if it isn't an essential platform, trust me, people won't use it again. Then lesson learned, past management critical. Yes, if the IT guys should come and say this thing is this, listen to them. You might not understand the technical know-how, you might not understand what they are saying, but please always listen to them, especially if it has to do with vulnerability. Very, very important. Timely breach notification is essential. Like I said, they tell you this is happening. Please always, always listen to them. It is very, very, important. Third party risk assessment needed. Sometimes you need other professionals, to come and access. Some companies actually pay hackers to try and hack their system to see what is happening, the vulnerabilities and all that. They pay people that, okay, try and hack us and let's see what you come up with. And there will be a document saying that anything you find, you should not use it. That there's always, and those ones are called white hat hacker. There are people that do it for companies and they don't misuse the information. Then you have incident response plan. Anyhow you tend to fight these things, you must create a scenario where it will happen and you will get through it. It's very, very important you create the scenario. You know that, okay, this thing should happen. What is the first thing we need to close down? What is the first thing we need to some people, if they notice their hack, the first thing they do is cover their camera. They don't want them to see their face. That one now is mostly for criminals. They don't want to see their face, to cover their camera. That is their own way of responding. And for companies, once you know you are hacked something, the best, if it's on-prem, just go and off the server, let it just go off, so that the access will be cut or disconnect from internet. If you cannot access where the internet is, shut everything down, so that at least for that moment everything goes off. The hacker cannot continue doing anything, because when you say you now want to start doing want to start fighting the hacker with, you can miss it altogether. So it's very important you first be safe than sorry. Privacy regulation overview. GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, EU. Now, each country has their own data laws, and these data laws now, these guys work with companies, and make sure that these companies adhere to the best practices. Now, right to be forgotten. Right to be forgotten means you have the right to delete the data. Data portability means that collect the smallest data as much as possible. Consent means the person must agree for you to collect this data. Then you have CCPA to California Consumer Privacy Act. Right to know, right to delete, right opt out of sale. Right to know means what type of data are you collecting. Right to delete, I want to delete that data. I want you to delete my data. Then opt out of sale, I can say I'm not doing again. I'm not using your platform again. I want to clean everything, and they don't have a choice. Then HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability, Protected Health Information, Privacy Rules, Security Rules. You see, there are certain rules that these different bodies have, that when they come and inspect you, those are the things they are going to check. If they come and inspect you, they check all these things. And if you don't have any of these things, they can even close you down. How you are protecting the information, what are your privacy rules, and what are your security rules? Very important. Best practice for organizations. Develop clear policies. Create comprehensive privacy and security policies that are regularly updated. Like I said, I work in a place that we don't use flash drives. You dare not bring flash drive to work. Nobody has flash drive. Nobody uses flash drive. That is a security, policy. Another example is CUG, closed unit group. That's where you have certain phones. Let's say MTN gives you about 10 phone numbers that only your company can call each other. They cannot call your normal line. It's your phone line they will be calling. That's where all communications go through, down to your normal phone. Then regular audits, conduct periodic security assessment and vulnerability scan. Yes. And this now, let's say you have an on-prem server and you have about 20 systems. As an IT person, you actually have to go around to check periodically what everybody is doing on the system, their browser history, what they are checking, You'll be surprised at what some people do with your internet. Basically, you'll be surprised at the kind of series they download, the kind of sites they go to. And that is very, very bad because those are the places you get things that can affect your whole server and create a security breach because a lot of people don't even know what a threat looks like because most threats don't look like threats, especially in the computer world. Vendor management. How are your vendors managing their own security? If you start doing business with this vendor, based on their data security practices, will it affect my own data or will I be safe? That is also very, very important for you to know. Employee training, regular security awareness training for all staff members, very important, for you to train your staff about the use of data and how it affects the companies because a company is just see a company is a scandal away from closure. And what causes all this is data breach. Okay, for example, see what happened to the pay staff. Yeah, sorry about that. You know, something he did 2011 came back to hunting. When it was that's why I said if you don't want it to be seen, do not record it. Once you record it, it will be seen. There is no how. That is how data works. It wants to get out. So you have to be careful what you allow people see. And now he has been sacked for what he did 2011. That's more than 10 years ago. He didn't care that he did it 10 years ago, or he said it 10 years ago. He was still sacked. And the data has been sitting in his account for 10 years without anybody even noticing. Somebody just went there and I'm sure he will regret why he didn't delete, those things. Incident report plan. Prepare and test breach response procedure. Like I said, you must always do these things. What is your first response? Like I always advise people, first thing when you know you've been hacked or somebody's stealing, first switch everything off first. Let nothing work. Don't try and be a James Bond. Switch everything off first or disconnect from internet. Because if you are now saying you want to be finding, you might be 1% away from rescuing your company, and you are just switch everything, let everything end first before you can now say okay. Because if you say you are doing this, you are doing this, when you are being hacked, a lot of things happen in the background you don't know. So you have to be very careful of the unknown and put it in mind that yes, I don't know what's really happening. Let me first remove the server upgrade first. Then documentation, maintain record of data processing activities. Yes, this is what you call log. Who logged in? Like I said, the hospital now, nurses don't share password because everything you do is documented. Who does this, who administers drugs, who at what time, all everything is logged. And everything, when I mean everything is logged, everything is logged. Who logged in, when the person logged in, everything. Individual rights and responsibility. You're right. Know what data are collected. True. That is why I said that even the companies will tell you these are the data that we are going to be collecting from you. Have access to your personal data, correct inaccurate data, you'll be able to change email, be able to change name, request data deletion, you can delete email, you can change email at any time. Though there are certain data you cannot delete, like email, you can't delete email, you need an email. Opt out of data sharing. Yes, you can say, okay, I don't want to share this again. Add data sharing now. If you notice, sometimes Facebook will say something like connect to let's have access to your contacts, to see your friend and send friends, to know all your friends and all that. All those things, all those things now are systematic way of collecting data from you. Once they tell you what they want to do, but sometimes they don't tell you fully what they want to do. They just need you to just accept. Because when they say it, sometimes it's not ample enough, you know. Then data portability, give the lowest data possible. Name, username, email, password, email, address. That should be the highest that should be given. Mother name, maiden name, those two things should not be given. Once they start asking you extra things, you should be very careful. Then your responsibilities, use strong passwords, enable multi. These are things you can do from your end to secure yourself more. You know, very important. Be cautious with personal information. Yes, keep software updated. Reason being that the previous version update and then they see your system and they see that, oh, this person still has the vulnerability, you will be attacked. Recognize phishing effects. That's what I mentioned when I said you can send in this, click here to see it smile. You should be able to know that this is not something I didn't tell anybody I like them. I didn't, you should be very careful to click. Do not be click happy. A lot of things are called clickbait. Review privacy settings. Yes, every software has privacy settings, so you can check each of them to know that, okay, are the privacy settings. Some, for example, Instagram, some accounts are private. That's a privacy settings. For example, some accounts don't show email, some accounts don't show phone number. These things are part of privacy settings, what you want to show. Now, key takeaway: privacy and security are interconnected, yes, because privacy increases security, and security also increases privacy. Both are essential for protecting your information. Then, CIA triad is very fundamental because it is the foundation of security. If you don't follow the three of them correctly and make sure they connect with each other, you are going to have problem because there will be loopholes. Because hacking does not really mean somebody is in UK and pressing one laptop with 5 screens. No, it can be somebody very close to you. That will just be you be pressing your phone password. The person will be looking, you look at you first time. You will do as if he didn't say anything. You press it again, he looks at it. You will now say, okay, it is 777 666. You will now try one day, take your phone, try it, you open, you go to your bank app, you see if you use that same thing. All those little things. If you don't take the foundation of data security serious, all those things can get to you. Proactive approach required. Yes, you must always act before it happens. Don't say it cannot happen. It can happen and it will happen if you don't, you know, take it. There are a lot of people's WhatsApp that they hack. It's all these little things that people don't take into consideration. They will tell you, call and tell you your children's school is doing something, something. They will send some codes to you, and you accept the code. You will give them the code. They will hack your WhatsApp. They will start begging people for money from your WhatsApp. They do that a lot at some point. You know, Compliance is mandatory, yes. Organization must adhere to privacy regulation and industry standard. This is the government's job, where they set up certain agencies to go around and make sure that companies are not breaching data agreements. For example, now, nobody knows how much Tonelumelu has in UBA. Nobody knows how much anybody has in any bank. You are the one that knows the amount you have in your bank account right now. Imagine the bank will give me your bank account and what is inside your bank. What is in the amount you have is a serious database. So every company must adhere to data compliance, very important, and they must actually destroy certain data. It's actually a must. There are certain data they must not keep. They must destroy it. Yes, everyone has a role. Protecting data privacy and security is a shared responsibility. Yes, Like we said, your own rule is strong password, MFA, multi-factor authentication, biometrics, face recognition, and all that. Now, the organization's role that's protecting your data, that's where they have data security, the encryption. You can't do that. They have to be the one, to do that. Vulnerabilities and threats in web applications, Internet of Things technology. Now, you have learning objective, identify vulnerability, recognize common security weaknesses in web application and IoT devices, understand threats, analyze attack vectors and threat factor targeting modern system, plan mitigation, implement security control and best practices for protection. And the digital attack surface. Now, web application and IoT ecosystem are not the same, though they can work hand in hand because you can actually use a web application to control the things. Internet of Things just means devices communicating with each other, hardware rather communicating with each other. Like your bulb, you can use your phone to switch off your bulb. You can use your phone to switch on your TV. You can use your phone to close the curtain. Those little things. That's what you mean by Internet of Things. When you can communicate with things through the internet. Then web application, customer-facing portals. That's where you have your username, your password. E-commerce, like I said, where your credit card information will be processed. Cloud-based services. That's where you have your cloud, your servers within the cloud. The mobile application, that's the one you have on your phone. Web application can be converted to mobile application because there's a way you have to package it for it to work on your phone. If not, you have to access it through your browser. Then IoT ecosystem, you have smart home devices, like I said, sensors, yes. Like for example, you have um, sensors for farmers, for farming, where they put sensors in the soil, then the sensor sends information to the person, to the computer that, okay, the soil humidity is this, the phosphorus level is this, medical equipment. If been to the hospital of Vincent, there's a small device they use for SpO2, the oxygen level. They put it on your thumb and it will read your oxygen level. And once it is read, the system can write it down automatically without, them even repeating anything. Connected vehicles, that's where you have your EVs. Tesla had an issue, I think 2 years ago, when a guy kept on hacking his Tesla, he kept on jailbreaking his Tesla, and removing it from the Tesla grid. He kept on removing it. So they had to be, it was a back and forth case basically. Web application vulnerability, injection of SQL commands and code injection expression, impute validation weaknesses. You see, this SQL injection has to do with a problem with the database. And there's a way it works with JavaScript and SSL, where they can use SQL now to query the server. Then, and once they do that, the server would query the database, basically using the SQL command or JavaScript command. Once the server might think that, oh, it's somebody that has access that is doing it. So if you don't protect against that, you are going to just be getting people's username, password, everything. If you encrypt it, they can decrypt it. Once they have the hash, there's what you call hash sum. Those hash sum now, they are long, but it's encrypted in a particular way. And if they know the encryption method, they can actually decrypt it. And broken authentication, weak credentials, season management flaws, and authentication. Now, this one now, weak credentials, maybe you go and use password now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's a very weak password. And even no system will allow that and say, they will tell you that the password is too weak because If there's a data breach, you will blame them. So they will tell you, make sure your password is strong. Session management flaws. Now, when you log in to, let's say, Gmail, you create what you call a session. And when you create a session now, that session has a token key, which states that, okay, this person is going to log in for this particular amount of time. If they send you a phishing mail, that phishing mail now, that I said, the person likes dog, they put dog and they say click here. That clicking, there's a code there that will make them hijack your session. And once they hijack your session, it will not look as if they are the ones now logged in as you. Because all they need is that session token. Once they have that session token, they will log in as you without including username and password. These are very high level threats. Then authentication bypass. This one too is quite. This one now is probably they know they need your phone number they know you are going to get two-factor authentication. So what they can do is they can duplicate your phone system or even your SIM card, that the thing is coming in, they will be the one to receive it, not you. So you will not even know anything has entered your phone or anybody's trying to do anything. And that's how they will log in. Sensitive data exposure, inadequate encryption and data and protection of confidential, information. That is where you still have what you call the data at rest and data in motion. When you input username and password and you click login, it will carry, actually the way it works is it will carry the username and password, it will present it to the server that look, this person is saying that he has an account with you with this username and this password. Can you check? So the server will carry it, okay, carry it to the database, compare it to all the users in the database, say, okay, there's somebody here that has it, okay, give the person, because this person brought this information, only give the person this access to this certain information, because that's the, something, like that. XML external entity, exploiting XML processor to access internal file system. Now, this has to do with the structure of your website. For example, if your website is, let's say, www.lagos.com, when you do that, that is your normal website, right? If you don't, um, if you don't, if you don't put into consideration external or internal links that are still operational, you are going to blame yourself, because they can just say lagos.com slash, let's say, images slash contact slash password. If your server has that link within it, it's going to bring out information, and it's going to bring it out in the form of file system. And once it does that, they can just browse through everything that is in your, file system. They can just browse everything that is in your server, basically, because you did not block that, XML. XML means the skeletal structure of your website. If you don't block the unnecessary links, you are going to have this external entity issue. Okay. Web application security risk. You have broken authentication, sensitive data exposure, broken. We've discussed about some of this. So broken external control, projection, injection, like that was what we discussed. You have cross-site scripting, is what I mentioned about um, the SQL injection, where they type certain codes to retrieve certain information, and your server will think is you. Insecure desanitization. This is where somebody can steal your, like I said, your data, that someone can steal your session, using components with known vulnerability. Like, for example, you know, or it is well known that this particular, that's where we talked about updating software. You know, when this particular server and the firmware or this particular switch is known to have this vulnerability, or browser, let's say Chrome, for example, is known to have this vulnerability, and they are telling you to update. They've written in there, please update, and you are like, I don't want to update now. You are causing problem for yourself because somebody can easily just use that and use that because hackers tell each other things. So once they find something, they tell everybody knows already, and you don't know because you are not in that community. So when the organization tell you, please do this thing, especially updates, always try to update. Now, also have top 10 web vulnerabilities. This one, okay, SQL injection. Like I said, okay, I've described this. Attackers insert malicious SQL code to get into this one. You know, I mentioned this extra sensitive data. So what this means is use, like you see example of an attack, username admin or 1 is equals to 1. That username admin means that look at the server. Look at the query, select everything from users. That means go to the user table, bring everything there. Go to the user table, look for where username is admin. If you understand, that's what I'm reading it to you. And password is equals to anything. What this is saying is that anywhere you see username as admin, go to the user table, look for where the username is admin, bring out everything about that username. And if you understand what I mean, so it's going to bring out if you have that vulnerability, then with this little small code, they are going to get your admin access. They are going to get admin access to your database. It's as simple as that, you know. Now, cross-site scripting. This is where you have JavaScript. You know, it's almost the same thing as an SQL, but in this one, you can embed certain script into the. That's why you see sometimes when you want to go to some websites, they will tell you this website is not safe. Advance at your own risk. You know, so what they do is that once they have the server, they can now inject certain things into the JavaScript of your source code. So let's say me now, I just come, open your browser. They've done in such a way that once that page loads on my browser, a certain command will run, which is we are now editing those pages. Then maybe the data is the command is still session cookie, like I mentioned, session or personal data. So those are the ways this works.
Sorry,
We will
Mr.
not even
Omokere, sorry to cut you. Hello, can you
sorry?
hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I
I
can
just
hear
wanted to
you.
remind you about
Sorry? What did you say?
the break, just so that we break is coming. I'm sure
I didn't
just
hear
to give
you.
you a reminder.
You want
I
to
said the
remind me?
break is in 30 minutes, is in a few minutes. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay, no problem, no problem. When you are ready, let me know. Okay, let's continue. Now, IoT security challenges, weak default credentials. A lot of people, okay, I'm actually guilty of this one because I did a lot of hacking during when I was very young. So I used to use a lot of free internet, basically, of my neighbors that they even went to report me and to internet provider that there's somebody that is always using our internet. But what they don't realize is that most often than not, the person that will hack you is somebody that will be very close to you, not somebody far from you. So I don't even have to press a lot of computer to steal your Wi-Fi password, basically. Even though you give me your phone, I can do that. So no matter how difficult the password might be or how complex it is, there are different ways to do it. I don't have to press laptop. So, and once I do that now, the first thing I do is check your router security, and a lot of times, most routers have the default username and password. I kid you not. I kid you not. Most of them usually have default username and password. So once I know they have username and default username and password, once I type default username, it enters. I'm like, well, I mean, as simple as that. But a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't put it into consideration. But because me, I want to continue using their internet, I will not spoil anything. So I just know that these people are not too secure. Continue using the internet. But I always get to that level where I hack their router, but I don't do anything because I want to enjoy their internet. I don't want them to know. So now, lack of update, like I said, firmware has vulnerability. They are telling you to update. You don't want to update. You are not updating is a very big problem. Insecure communication, unencrypted data transition between devices and server. That's when you have what you call man in the middle. Like I said, let's say the way I hack their server now, I've entered their router. I can use certain softwares. I will mention one, Cain and Abel. That's actually a software. I can use it to spy on what you are doing, basically. And if your Wi-Fi is open, it means that it is not encrypted in any way, shape, or form. So I can see anything anybody's doing, any website anybody's going, and all that. Then limited resources, constrain processing power to prevent robust security implementation. Yes, so even if you want to implement security measures, you still need processes. Processes are things that run in the background, or let me say services. So these limited resources, they induce it sometimes by that DDoS attack. Once your server is crumbled, most of the security processes goes down, so they can easily, penetrate. That's what that limited resources means. They will shut down some of the security features, processes that are running, by overwhelming your server. Once those are down, they can easily do what they need to do. Now, IoT attack vectors, device compromise. These are direct exploitation of vulnerabilities in IoT, hardware, and firmware. For example, you have Wi-Fi in your house. You have your cameras are connected to the Wi-Fi. That means they are going to have IP addresses. Now, if I connect to your network and I scan your network and I see all your cameras, their IP, I can actually access those cameras through that IP. Now, if you eventually use default username and password to protect the Wi-Fi, or you don't use at all, you are in problem. I'll be able to view everything you are doing. I'll be able to see your house, everything in your house. It's that simple, basically. And it's not also simple if you protect yourself very well. Mobile apps, expecting companion application you use to control. Like I said, there are certain devices you use to control. Let's say it's an Android, device, and somebody tells you to download Candy Crush, a special version of Candy Crush, in the device, and because they will not use what you don't like to hack you. It's what you like, they will always use. And there are processes to it. Mobile apps, they will just tell you install Candy Crush, this a deluxe version. You install it, they will take over your, you will install it, you will just notice that it's not working. You just say, meanwhile, once you install it, they collected everything they need, they created the backdoor, everything is already running. You will now delete it thinking it's not working. You lied to me. Meanwhile, they're already into the system. Network attack, like I see man in the middle. I've been talking of since, and it's dropping on device communication. That's what man in the middle does. It is just in information. That was what I was saying when information is moving Once somebody is in the middle, that's what I call man in the middle. They are there watching everything and you are capturing everything you need to capture. And it's also the same as eavesdropping, basically. Cloud targeting backend services and API managing IoT devices. Because devices connect to the internet or communicate to the internet through APIs, APIs send certain information to the cloud and back. So once you can read those information it is sending, you can actually hack them. And because what API use what you call API keys. And for every information to be accepted by the server, it has to be accompanied with a key. So if you have the API key, you are as good as, into the system, basically. Real world IoT breach, Mirai botnets. Yeah, okay, 2016 malware and attack targeted IoT devices, exploited default credentials. I mentioned that, created massive botnets. Now, what this means is that, let me explain it to you. Let's say me now, I'm the hacker. My real target is, OP bank, Then there's a particular vulnerability I noticed in a lot of people's computer using, let's say, Edge browser. So what I do is, no, let me use IoT devices. There's a particular IoT device, an IoT firmware version that has a particular vulnerability. Then when I now do a scan, I saw that about 2,000 or 3,000 Nigerians have that device and they have that vulnerability has not been patched. What I'll do is that once I've exploited with the default credentials, because I know that most of them didn't pay attention to it, I'll now create what I call worm, like I said. But here they use botnet. What the botnet will now do is that the botnet will now be attacking the server, OP server. It will just be sending request to OP server. That's where you now have the long devastating DDoS attack. It will just be, now imagine 600,000 devices are sending requests to OP server per second, Let's say they are not equipped to take that level, it will crash. That's where you now see something like major websites taking offline. Internet infrastructure disrupted, everything goes down, Highlighted IoT security crisis. Before they get to this final part, a lot of things has happened. Before they get to know that, okay, it's the IoT device that a lot of things has gone down, a lot of data has been stolen, basically. So that is how the attacks work, step by step. I used to explain this, target, the attack, and impact. Common web application threats. Now, this is where everything I've been saying, I'm going to now explain it. Attack gather information about target system and potential vulnerability. So for this, there are two ways. You can target the system or target the person that uses the system. If you target the system, that's when you do the scanning, the port scanning, but it is actually always easier to target the person. Like I said, you like football, you like Barcelona. The person knows, he has been looking at your browser history, he's looking at let's say looking at your social media accounts. He's seeing that anything Barcelona, you're always commenting. You can depend message to your game. They will not say anything. They will just get your email, send you a message, and say, Messi, this is coming to Nigeria, and you see that you are a clinical fan. Click here to be on the wait list, something simple and doesn't look harmful. You click it, you just see that you just take it to it directs you to a site that is not working. You realize nothing is happening. The only reason why they have that information about you is what you call this reconnaissance. This reconnaissance is actually what takes most time in hacking. This reconnaissance, because they will study you or study the system very well. They will read documentation. If it's a system, they will read documentation. They will read a lot of things about that system, read patches, how it was, the history, how it was made, system infrastructure. But if it's a person, they will just study your habits, your behavior, what you like, what you don't like, what gets you excited. And they can do all these things through your social media. In fact, there are certain celebrities in the US that they've attacked their own just because they took a family picture that they are on vacation. Something as simple as taking a family photo that you're on vacation. And they are not at home. They will raid your house. Something that simple, and that's where this common sense is. Then when you get to initial compromise, let's say you click the wait list now, you've seen that the site is not working, you just abandon it, that these people are messing with it. They gain access to the system, they will not shout, they will not say anything. But the problem is the access they gained is only going to be as high as the person they gained it from. So they need to elevate their access so that they can have access to things that person don't have access to. That's where you get to the third one, privilege escalation. That's the first thing they do. They elevate their access right to gain administrative control over compromised system because they know that your credentials might not be enough to get some things. They do that a lot in the bank. You want to process something, they tell you they will have to take your check, they have to take it somewhere, person will stamp, sign, all those little things. It's because they don't have the permission to process that. They work in the bank, they're in the system, but they don't have that permission. So the person will escalate the privilege, sharp, so that they can quickly be able to have access to everything. They have data exfiltration. This is where they now start taking data and while maintaining persistence in the environment. This persistence is what you now call the backdoor, easier way to enter. So anytime you're online like this, they're already inside and they will not say anything. They'll just be taking what they're taking and you might not even know it's happening. By the time you know, it's already too late. Maybe they did when this is doing somewhere else, something like that. Authentication and system management flow, weak password policies. We've talked about this. When you don't use big password, use 12345 then when they do what you call brute force attack means they get a dictionary, they get a script, and the dictionary will be consist of maybe 2 million words. Then they start running your server through those start running those passwords through your server, till one clicks. That's what you call brute force. Then credential stuffing. Yes, using stolen credential from other breaches to access accounts. For example, it happens, let's say there is a breach in Google password vault, for example now. With this now, once they do that, they have access to a lot of people's username. Let's say something you pay subscription for now, they will just have access to it and they will be able to use the service without you knowing, rack up your bill, something like that. Season fixation. Attackers force users to use known session identifiers. You see, this is the one I was talking of, the hijacking of your sessions. Once they hijack, because each session has a token. Once they have that token, it's as good as you are the one logging in because the server has given you that token and it knows that it is you give that token. So it will always allow you, back into the system as long as you have that token. But the thing about the token is that the token is for a short period of time, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours. But within that time, they will extract anything they want. They will change your password, change your email, change your phone number. You will now be able to be locked out permanently. Yeah, missing MFA, lack of multi-factor authentication. You see this, even if they steal your session, if you have MFA, they will only be able to steal your data. They will not be able to change your username and password. If you get what I mean, because to change your password, they need.
Hello, Mr. Tobi.
Yeah.
I was trying to remind you earlier about the break. We were supposed to have a 30 minutes break around 11:30, so that by 12
Okay, we can go on break
we
now
would
so that I'll just
reconvene, but
come
we
back.
can have the break now. 15.
Sorry?
All right, perfect. The people are outside my place and it's a little bit noisy. That's why.
Okay, so we can have the break now, then we come back and finish because it's
All right.
not more. What is left is not actually
It's just
much.
30 minutes.
Okay, no problem.
All right. So All right, so everyone will be having a break now. We will all be back at 12:15, so we can continue the class. So let's use this break as a breather, and we can take some snacks and relax a bit, so we can continue the class. Please don't forget to come back to the class on time. A reminder will be sent to the group, and please also be ready and be on the call so that there will be no network issues. Thank you. See you after the break.
Can you start? Okay, very good. Okay, so let me share my screen now. Yes, like I was saying, if you have missing multi-factor authentication, a lot of things can be changed without your consent. But if you have this multi-factor authentication, even if these other three have been breached, your multi-factor authentication is your last line of defense in the sense that before any information can be written or destroyed from your account, they need to verify or they need to impute code from multi-factor authentication. And most of the time it is impossible because it has to do with your device and it has to be something physical in your hand, which is most of the time your mobile phone. So a normal hacker cannot just come and do that, except somebody that has access to your, device. So IoT vulnerabilities by ranking, weak password is the first on the list because nobody should be able to guess your password. But before now, people always thought these things were not so important, so they don't really pay attention to strong password. But over time, when they saw that it was easy for hackers to guess these things through they call it dictionary attack, brute force using dictionary, they discovered that passwords were easy to guess. So they increased they call it score, your difficulty score, your password difficulty score. That's why you see when sometimes in some apps, when you are typing your password, you be showing percentage, 60% difficulty, 80%, 90. Sometimes they will give you some line, they will say caps must be present, it must be 10 digit, it must have symbol, it must have letter and number, you know, and until because they know that this is one of the most common way in which people are being hacked. Then you have unpatched firmware. These are things that I've discussed before. So unpatched firmware, probably there is a version that has a particular vulnerability, and they are telling you to update, but you now you feel as I'm using it like this, nothing's happening. Why do I need to update? I like it this way. But there's a non-security breach for that version you are using. So if an attacker should access or assess your infrastructure and discovers you have that particular device and that particular vulnerability and that particular firmware and you've not patched it, they can use that firmware to actually gain access into your system. Insecure network, that one now, let's say Wi-Fi, you have a Wi-Fi in your company. That's why if you notice banks don't use Wi-Fi. They use Ethernet. They don't use Wi-Fi because once someone knows the password to the Wi-Fi, it's problem. Unauthorized person, if you know what to do, just by connecting to a Wi-Fi, you know what to do. Like how I said before, I can actually hack your router just by connecting to your Wi-Fi. I can even hack your Wi-Fi depending on certain security measures. So this insecure network now, they can literally just hack you, then do what you call that man in the middle. They will not destroy it. They will not. They will just, because information is key. Information is power. So they will rather be there undetected. Lack of encryption. That's where you now have the man in the middle again. You know, it will be easy for them to read your data and all that if your data is not encrypted at rest or in transit. Then poor access control. A cleaner is not supposed to have the right of a doctor. If you understand what I mean, it's not supposed to have the right of, you know, a, somebody that can have access to patient history. You are just a cleaner. Probably you impute certain logs, they give you certain privileges, but you cannot have more, because once a cleaner has the right of a doctor, then they don't have any business having, you know, access to patient information. Once they are having that, then there's a serious access control issue. Now, securing. So now, securing web applications. There are various methods. You have input validation. Sanitize and validate all user inputs to prevent injection. This means that there is always a check. Once you want to log in, there's a check that, okay, because like I said, the way it works, once you input, your browser will package the information, will package it to the server. Then the server will look at it. If you don't secure your server well, your server will not look at it very well, and you just go ahead with whatever, you know, command it gets. So your server must be well protected in terms of all these little input validation and all that. Then secure authentication. Implement strong password policies and multi-factor authentication. And the best you can do as the application owner, actually, the best you can do is to nudge them in particular practices when it comes to security. For example, some apps don't allow you login without using multi-factor authentication. They won't allow you login. They will tell you you must have two-factor authentication, while some will partially just suggest it to you, but some is a must. Some will partially suggest it to you. But this strong password policy is the one I was telling you, that you must have caps, you must be 10 in number, they must have symbols, you know. Then you have encryption. Use HTTPS. HTTPS means hypertext protocol. That S there is what you call secure. That S means secure. Even TLS, the S at the back means secure for all communication and encrypt sensitive data at rest. That's what I've been saying. So that when somebody even says that, okay, I hacked you, whatever they see, they won't first understand it. It will look like jargon to them until they have the key. And it is that key now that converts the data into something you can read. Without that key, they won't be able to do it. So even though they have access, once they don't have the key, they will not be able to do anything because they won't be able to decrypt it. Security headers. Configure proper HTTP security headers to prevent common attack. Security headers are a form of identification. And what I mean by that is, before anything is given to before any information is accepted by the browser, there's what you call header. Those headers now are the initial information that goes to the server. Once the server looks at the header and it's something it doesn't recognize, it will not actually accept. It will reject the connection. If, for example, coders now have, this is actually a common problem for coders actually, because you might be building an application and the server keeps rejecting your request. You have to look for why the server is rejecting your request. You know, it means that there's something you have misconfigured from the header, because the header is the first thing your server will receive. before any other thing. So if your server is rejecting your request head-on, it means there's something wrong with your server. There's something wrong with your header. That means you have to look at the source code of your software or your program. Then regular testing, you have to, like I said, companies pay hackers to actually hack them to see where there's vulnerability. This is actually very important because it is better for somebody you know to do it than somebody you don't know. Because when somebody you don't know should do it, you don't have control of what the person will use the data for. But when somebody you know should hack you, the person has signed non-confidential document with you that they are not going to use the information for anything, even if they find anything, and they will report anything they find immediately. Now, IoT security best practices, device level, change default credentials. I mentioned that initially that a lot of routers, even as I speak, a lot of companies, their routers are using default username and password as I speak. So you must always change that because anybody that has access to your Wi-Fi can have access to your router. That's what you need. There are ways we can find the IP address of your router and all that. And if you don't change it, you're in problem. Enable automatic updates. True, you must always, though this is dangerous sometimes because some updates are not stable. So once you update, it crashes your hardware. So you must always be careful. But it is important to better to be safe than sorry. At least you know that you can actually always roll back in case you have this firmware issue. Disable unnecessary feature. I will use a bank as an example, a bank building. Imagine you have a bank building and customers can enter through the back door, willingly, and the bank allows it. You know that bank will soon be robbed. So that's what this means in the physical sense. Any door that is not because servers communicate with the outside world through ports. So any ports that you don't need should be disabled. Any port you are not, because there are ports for emails, port for your browser, port for SSL, port for so many things. So any port that you know that you are not using that is redundant, please, you have to disable it. It's very important because if you don't, they can use the services from that port to attack you, especially if it is a port that you are not using. Yes, strong encryption. You have to use a known strong encryption. I'll give you an example. The two industry that use the best encryption, there are two of them, banking and most likely betting. They use strong encryption, very strong, because they deal with money and deal with people's money. Segment IoT devices. Now, this means that you can have multiple VLANs. And what this means is that once someone connects to your network, let's say your camera VLAN is, let's say, 192.168.10.12244. Then you now say that is camera VLAN. For people that want to browse normally with their phone and that, you will now have another VLAN. Let's say that will now be 192.168.11. The first one is .10. It will be harder for an hacker to easily gain access to different things when you do that. But when you now put everything in the same IP address, it's going to create serious issues because once they log in, once they have access, obviously they are going to be given an IP address because that's more like your identification online on the network. Once they have that and you are using one for everything, they can easily hack everything because they will have access to all the devices on. But when you segment, if it is only Wi-Fi that the person is using, it will be very difficult for the person to know what is happening with the camera because the camera has different VLAN. It is on a different VLAN. It is not on the same VLAN. They implement firewalls. Yes, you have to implement firewalls. Though these things are implemented, by default, basically, but you can add extra layer. For example, you can configure in such a way that certain software should not have access to internet. So they cannot communicate to the outside world. You can do it in such a way that your server should not communicate to the outside world. You can do it like that. That's a firewall implementation. So that people outside will not have access to your server. Anybody that wants to do anything on that server will have to come physically to where it is. That is also an implementation. Monitor traffic patterns. This is where you can now see that, okay, where are my traffic routing through? Is there any device that my traffic is going through that I don't know or something? So all these things are things you have to look at. Use VPNs for remote access. Let's say you are in London and the server is in Lagos and they need you to configure something. There are what you call remote access tools that you normally use for these things, like AnyDesk, for example. So those ones are the allowed, softwares to do these things. So VPN now means that a virtual private network means that you will create like a private network that cannot be spied on. And that is the network. Like, for example, there was a girl I met when I was working at a hotel that she worked for Deloitte. And then I was the IT manager for the place. So she called me that she cannot use our Wi-Fi. She's connected, but she cannot use it. So when I got there, we discovered that she's using what you call this VPN software to access our network. That's where she's connecting from. But the software cannot work without 5G. So I needed to now connect her to the 5G of the network before she could now, because she didn't want to use anything from our network. It's not as if she could not connect normally, but probably they told them not to connect to any hotel or any network normally. So what she did was she was using that VPN software to connect to our network. So everything she was doing was encrypted right from her system. Then management level, maintain device inventory. Devices too have data in them, and this data can be extracted. So you have to always do what I call inventory check. That, okay, how many phones are out? 20. Okay, who is holding which? So that you account for all of them at periodically. When I was working at the hospital, we used to do that because we had CUG. So we always have to do head count. That, okay, where is each CUG? Who is holding each? For example, if you are in front office and you're holding the CUG for nurses, why? What is it doing in your hand? Because that CUG is meant for nurses. Any information that comes through that CUG is supposed to be a sensitive information for the nurses. So that is why you must always do that. Regular security audits. Go around, check everybody's system, check their browser history. A lot of people don't know. You see them downloading season movies on system that is for work. Some even go as far as watching PORN on company systems. And they don't know all these sites have scripts that are running on that to steal information from users, because they know people that come and watch all those things, they are mostly devs and they are not computer experts. So they can use certain things to steal information from them. And they won't know. Incident response plan. Yes, you must always have a response plan that, okay, this thing should happen. What should be the first thing we should do? Because you can be very good in IT. Once you don't have this response integrated into you, when it happens, you will become confused, because most time data breaches happens very, very fast. It's not a slow something that within 1 minute they are in, they are out. That's even if they want you to know. They can even be there for years and you won't even know. So it's something that you have to know that, okay, what are the things I must do to cite certain things, monitor the system, monitor the server, go around, check everything, so that once you see something, what's the first thing I should do? If it's a system, remove that system from the network first, so that, or stop that system from being recognized. You can still leave it within this network, but you have to stop it from accessing the server. There are ways to do all those things so that you isolate it and solve the problem, because the server is also like a computer. If anything in that system should, maybe it's a file or a document, should, let's say they transfer it to the server, now it's going to affect the server, because the server is also like a computer. Vendor security review. The vendors, is this Cisco they are using? Is this Forgate? What are their security features like? Do they take it seriously? Do they patch? All these little things are things that you must, put in, you must check, because if you don't, and they have a known vulnerability, you might have done everything in your part correctly. But if they don't update their own firmware, you can still be hacked from their own end. Secure development lifecycle requirement. Define security requirement early in your development stage. This has to do with what you're actually building. Different things require different requirements. For example, banking requirement for security is very different from hospital, is very different from social media. Everybody have their own security measures. Maintenance, you have to continue monitoring the system and be checking for security updates. Very important. Stealing. Sorry about that. You have to check how the thieves are stealing so that you can come up with ways you can protect yourself. Very important. Deployment. Secure configuration and admin before production. You must always test, like I said, I think when you build a software, in your testing phase, you must test everything. You must test everything, because what you don't test will be used against you when you get to production. And when you now get to production, remember, data is being written, people are registering, people are logging in, and people's data are being written per second, and if you don't test everything before production, they are going to use it against you during production, because people will come for your system. Actually, competitors will come for your system. Hackers that are just flying around will come for your system, and once they know that your system has vulnerability, it's a big problem. Design, incorporate security architecture and threat modeling. Yes, now this now has to do with, you have to know the kind of threat that is known in specific sectors. If you get what I mean. For example, for banking now, like I said, they have their own, security measures based on how people use their software. So they have to design their security according to how people use their software and how their industry works. Then implementation, follow secure coding practices and conduct code reviews. The reason why you follow secure code practices is because you might want to do something different and think that you are designing the greatest. Meanwhile, the method you are using, if you don't research it well, there might be one thing wrong with it. And if you don't check what that thing is, you might be in problem, because there was a vulnerability at some point called heartbleed. This heartbleed now affected 90% of servers, 90% of servers, and everybody started running helter skelter to protect themselves, based on a particular way they all configured, their firmware and all that. So it is very important to conduct this code review so that people can give you information, you send it out to professionals, or you call them in to assess it for you, so that they can tell you that, okay, with the way you've done this, there will be a breach here, here, and there. The data is moving because of what you've done. It will stay here first, and once it stays here first, people can steal it there. There are several things that You must know before you can just decide that, okay, this is how I want my code to be. Then testing, perform security testing, including penetration testing. Yes, this is where I was saying you can pay somebody to actually hack your system for you and see what they can find. And once they can hack it, there's actually this thing I'm saying is actually a known something in the IT industry. Google, Apple, they have hackers constantly trying to hack Google. Apple have hackers constantly trying to hack Apple. And if you can do it, I think it's about $1 million for Apple. If you can hack them and get one information out, and they are sure that this information that you got is not something you're supposed to get normally, $1 million. That is how threat security is to these guys, because you can imagine the amount of people using our iPhone. Imagine the amount of people's data they have. There was an issue of a terrorist, I've forgotten the year, where they caught him and he was using an iPhone 4 or 4S then. The CIA could not open it, and they petitioned Apple to open it. And Apple said they are not going to open the phone. And it created a very big problem. And every phone industry backed them up, even though they were competitors. Even though they could open the phone, they cannot come out and say, we can open it, and they cannot open it for you. Because that means they've been lying to their users all along that it is secure. It is not secure even if you can open it. That's how people see it. So they had to go with the flow that no, this thing is not possible. We are not going to give you the back end. We cannot do it. But they could, but they told them that we cannot do it, and that was how it ended. They could not get anything from the phone. Emerging threats and trend. You see these AI-powered attacks. They are the most dangerous attacks now, because we all know AI is self-learning. So and it's automatic. They can leave it there for 1 week for it just to be working, and they will be doing something else. And it will continue continue till it gets it. So AI is very, very dangerous nowadays, especially for hacking. Though it's not really widespread because there are policies, but if you can jailbreak an AI and jailbreak it to hack, it is a very, very dangerous and powerful tool. Supply chain attack, compromising third-party components and in web applications. This has to do with, like I said, APIs. For example, your browser, Google Chrome has certain extensions. For example, you have extensions like Google Sheets and all those things. So if one of those extensions have a vulnerability, they can use that extension to hack you. They can use the extension to hack you because that extension has vulnerability. That's why if you check some extensions, Google will tell you to disable them. Maybe they found out that those extensions have vulnerability. 5G IoT expansion. Massive increase in connected devices creating larger attack surface. Yes, this happened. I don't know. There's a movie that came out, Jackie Chan, called Shadow's Edge. Those guys were thieves, but even with the use of AI, they could not catch them. And this is because those guys already hacked the security agency system. They've hacked everything without them even knowing. So everything the security agencies were saying, they were hearing it. So it was very easy for them to evade them. Even though they had access to more than 1,000 cameras and all that, they could not still catch these guys because the guys were literally listening to what they were saying. They were seeing where everybody's moving. They were seeing what the security agents were seeing. So this connected devices now is a very big problem, because if somebody asks, for example, let's say I have a company that handles 5,000 IoT devices and they hack my system. That means the person has automatically hacked 5,000 people, because now they can see what 5,000 people are doing. They can check the devices, they can check the movies they are watching, they can spy on you, so many things. Ransomware evolution, targeting IoT infrastructure and critical systems for maximum impact. Yes, you see, for ransomware, like I said, they want to collect money from you. This ransomware can even come from this 5G expansion, IoT expansion, because let's say they see something they are not supposed to see from your camera. They can send the video to you and tell you, pay off. That's actually ransomware in a nutshell, where the person will want to collect money from you. That's why you see that ransom. The person will want to collect money from you for the information he has on you or for the debt he has on you. You know, that's where the ransomware comes in. So when they target IoT devices, they're going to get personal data, live personal data from you rather than email, password, and all those normal things. But for IoT, it's a very, very big, red flag. Regulatory compliance and standards. So GDPR, we have that's for Europe, European Data Protection Regulation requiring privacy by design. Now, if you want to release your app in App Store or Google Store, you have to, in a way, they have to know. There's a way they do it where they know everything your app can do. They check all your code and they say, okay, this is not malicious to either us or the users. So they allow it. But the moment they discover that there is a problem, along the line, they will bring down your. For example, you see this European Data Protection Regulation body. They can easily write to Google and tell them we need this app to be removed because it doesn't comply to so. It will be removed. There's nothing you can do. All these four bodies can actually do the same. This software has this vulnerability. We cannot use it for it again. We cannot use it. We cannot tell people to use it again because it does this. And if Google or Apple should check it and discover that it is true, they will bring it down because it is very, very important. See, the HIPAA is for healthcare. Like I mentioned healthcare since that healthcare is another very sensitive place. It might not be money related, but data leaks from there can be very devastating, very, very devastating because people's health to them is very private and it can affect how people relate with them. Like I mentioned, if a governor, for example, has cancer now and he doesn't want anybody to know, and the nurse in the hospital just release text, the test, they will first see that nurse cannot even practice again, and now everybody knows that the governor has cancer. It's going to affect his political ambition and political standing. So it can be very, very damaging. International Standard for Information Security Management System, ISO. This one is mostly for Cisco systems and Cisco cybersecurity guys. They write most of this ISO. They write exams for it. If you can have the certificate for this, you are good for life because everybody will be looking for you because you actually have to pass the exam and they are sure that this person, for you to pass this exam, you can protect us. So if once you have the certificate, companies will be looking for you to protect their systems. Then you have the IEC 62443 Industrial Automation and Control System Security Standard. This now has to do with manufacturing, because manufacturing deals with a lot of algorithms, so their system is highly protected because because for example, China and Germany had an issue once when China wanted to start automation, car assembly line. They went to Germany and they told Germany that give us your assembly algorithm, we will leave certain world markets for you and we'll take certain. And Germany said no. If Germany had a breach or they don't follow most of these things, China can easily hack them and steal that algorithm. Though China did not do that, they developed their own, and them too now. Everybody's, in fact, it's so bad that in China, some things are considered national treasure. They can even Chinese people use them, but it cannot leave China. That's how bad it is, so that they won't take it to another country and go and dismantle it and see the technology inside. These things are also part of data breaches because once they open it and you see what's inside and they replicate it, competition starts. And this same thing has been going on between Samsung and iPhone. There was a time iPhone also sued Samsung that they copied them, this, that. The same thing with Microsoft and Apple, data issue is a very big issue, even among big companies, not talk of hackers. Once they get your information, what they will do with it, you might not like it. Now, key takeaways. Vulnerabilities are everywhere, both web application and IoT devices. Like I was saying, significant security challenges require constant vigilance. Like I said, it's a matter of police and thief. Thief wants to steal, police wants to protect, and police now has to think like a thief so that they can understand how the thief will come and steal for them. Defense in depth, multiple layers of security control are essential for comprehensive protection. For example, if you implement MFA, multi-factor authentication, remember you still have password. You're still going to encrypt password first layer. Okay, the person has stolen your password, fine. Oh yeah, there are several times I will get MFA requests, from my phone that somebody is requesting, wants to log in. Then they will give me certain code that I should impute. I will just ignore. I won't panic. And the reason why I'm ignoring is because I know without that code, they can't do anything. But assuming I didn't put that MFA, that's second layer. Your password is first layer, that is second layer. Assuming I didn't put that second layer, once they input that password, they are in. Proactive approach. Security must be integrated throughout the development cycle, not added as an afterthought. Yes, that's when you now talk of the best practices when you are building and follow building guidelines, when you are writing your code and everything. Continuous improvement. Yes, that's when I talked about when companies hire hackers to try and hack them to see where the vulnerability is and patch it and maintain and all those things. Protecting the digital future. Your role as IT professionals, most likely. Stay informed about emerging threats. Yes, you must always check blogs and all those, because if the hackers know before you, they will try it on you. If the hackers know about the vulnerability before you, they will actually try it on you. There's nothing like they don't care about you, they will actually try it on you. Implement security best practices. Like I said, passwords should be 10, 10 digit long, 10 character long, one uppercase number symbol. Those are the things that generally are in passwords. So those are best practices. You must always put it. Don't just tell somebody to just put any password and to just be accepted by the system. Because when they are hacked, they will actually blame you. Even if they hack them, they can use that to hack you. Advocate for security in organizations. Yes, you must advocate for. It's very, very important because data is money. Somebody can, like I said, a governor, they steal his data, that he has cancer, they can use it to blackmail him and be collecting money from him. And so security is very, very important, and you must make sure that in organization, anywhere you are working, data, because trust me, every company is one disaster away from, one scandal away from shutting down. Trust me, and all it takes is one piece of information to come out, and once that information comes out, that whole company is gone. Continuous update skills and knowledge. Yes, you must always, it is easier to train somebody to become something than hire them as professionals. Once you hire them as professionals, they become very expensive. But if you train them to become that, they'll be what people do. I don't know if they still do it now. They train you, then they give you a non-compete for 2 years. Non-compete, and you sign an MOU that, okay, with this skill I've learned, I'll work with you for 2 years. I'll use it to work with you for 2 years. So the person is working for you for cheap for 2 years just by training the person. Okay. So security is not a product, but a process. It's more than designing strong cryptography into a system, designing the whole system such that all security measures work together. Very true. Data security, privacy from a global perspective. Now, what this means is that every country or every region regards data differently and they treat data differently. Number one, understanding national data flow across border challenges. Yes, some things that are accepted in Dubai, in the Arab world, might not be accepted in Africa or Europe. For example, World Cup now, they're having an issue. Iran and Saudi Arabia are supposed to play a match on the same day that Pride people, LGBTQ people are having their celebration and they want to use the World Cup matches as celebration. But the Dubai guys, the Saudi Arabia guys and the Iran guys are like, this thing is not allowed in our own country. It's haram in our own country. So we cannot play a match to celebrate it, and they are still having that debate till now. So please, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So they are still having that issue till now, but most likely people will have to answer them because in their own part of the world, their own reality, that is not a thing. So you cannot bring it or enforce it on them. So each region has different things they require and things they say okay is accepted and things they are saying it is not accepted. Regulatory framework, yes. Key laws and regulations governing data worldwide. Even though each region has different data, laws and all that, there is still a common agency because the internet we are using in Nigeria comes from Europe through underlying optic cable through the ocean. That was why they had issues with the Calabar road, coastal road they wanted because it will cut across the fiber cable coming from Europe, most likely. Yeah. Privacy standard, international approaches to protect personal information. Yes, these international governing bodies now have created certain standards that you must follow if you want to. In your country, when you are doing it, fine, all well and good. Once you want to move out of your country to their own region or worldwide, there are certain things you must always do. For example, when Netflix, I'll use Netflix for example, the Netflix we watch in Nigeria is very different from the Netflix they watch in America. And all these things is still based on data, the way data is being shared and all that. So they know how to do all these things and they understand these international laws. That is why they are doing all these things. Those are just practical examples of how this privacy come. Because if you don't connect from America, there are certain things you will not see on Netflix. There are certain movies you cannot watch. You will never see it on your own Netflix because it is not available in your region. That's exactly how this privacy standard also works. There are standards in each country and each organization that might not allow you to have access from your own side, because of, for example, they will never allow, based on past experiences, they will never allow a Nigerian person from Nigeria access dating websites in America. It's not possible. They will never allow you. They will rather destroy the whole dating website than allow you because they know once you are there like this, you are coming to create problem. So that is how these things work. Implementation strategies, best practices for global data protection. Like I said, when you are doing it in your country, all well and good. But once you now want to move to international customers, you have to now follow certain strict rules. Very strict. Very, very strict. And one of the rules you will follow is you must run an open account. Your cash flow, everything must be very, very transparent. Because they will check all those things before you can even start, especially when it comes to grant and investment. All those things are very important. They are going to check your tax, everything. If you pay tax, even in your own country, they might just request for just your TIN number, and they will just go to the body that is responsible for that thing and drop your TIN number, and they will give them what they need to give them. You might not even have to do anything because those are international best practices because they know that you are coming to the international world. Some practices in your country might not work here. So that's why they follow all those things so that everybody adheres. The global data challenge. Why global perspective matter? Data crosses border instantly. Like I said, they have optics cable running from Europe. In fact, the closest server to Nigeria is in Europe. I think Netherlands or UK, one of the two. Then the second, I think, is in South Africa, yes. So the closest data center to us is in Europe. That means there is a company in Europe that sees all our information as they are browsing. That is the truth. Your Android, as you are pressing it, as you are browsing, they are seeing everything. Everything is being logged. They are seeing every single thing. Your laptop, as you are browsing, Microsoft is seeing every single. So even you without going there, your data, your activity, they are reading it there. That's what this means. Different countries, different rules. I've mentioned that some countries don't allow some things, some allow some things. Organizations operate internationally. You see, if you want to operate internationally, you must obey the overall rule, not just your country rule now. Users expect consistent protection. Yes, users expect that if I give you my email, I won't see it elsewhere. If I give you my username and password, I won't see it elsewhere. If you're a therapist and I tell you my problems, I won't hear it elsewhere. I come to your hospital to do tests, I will not see the result elsewhere. You know, users expect that as I'm giving you this thing, I don't want to see it elsewhere. Even without them saying it, it is a known fact. If not, people will run away from you. Remember, I gave a situation about a um, um, key challenges, conflicting regulations. Yes, what is I just mentioned? I just used Saudi Arabia and Iran as an example of conflicting regulations. LGBTQ is allowed in America. LGBTQ is not allowed in Saudi Arabia. So they don't want to identify with it, basically. But they don't have a choice. But they are still see cultural differences and privacy. That is the exact problem that is happening. The cultural differences between Iran, Saudi Arabia, and America. America does not have problem with LGBTQ. Iran, in their culture and religion, is a no-no, you know. So that is still creating issue till now. So some softwares or some apps that are working in America are being disabled in Asia. For example, OnlyFans. OnlyFans does not work in Asia at all, because they don't want their women to be nude online and men are watching them. It doesn't follow their own data does not reach woman nakedness. So they will not allow it. Enforcement complexity. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. What is allowed here, what is not allowed here determines what can be enforced. You know, if if America now cannot go to China and say you have to allow OnlyFans. In fact, it's so bad that China does not even use Google because they don't want America to spy or get any data on them. The same issue America is having with TikTok, that they want to ban TikTok in America because they don't want China to be having information about Americans. And the difference is for China, China has an open data policy. What does that mean? The government, you know, they are communists. So the government is in charge of every single thing. Any data that you have as a company or as a software company or an IT government, the government has the right to use it and check it and analyze it. So that is what the Americans are afraid of. That they said, no, this TikTok has to stop. These guys are having so much information about us, and we need to stop it. Rapid technological changes. Yes, for the way technology is changing, you see how long it took America to respond to TikTok. By now, they have already gotten all the information they need about Americans already. They don't need to even do anything again. No matter what they do, they already have what they need, you know. And that's because America was actually very slow to react to what TikTok was doing, you know. And of recent, I don't know if you noticed last week, TikTok banned Nigeria from doing overnight live. How did they know what was happening? It's through data. Nobody is sitting there and watching what's happening with Nigerians. No, it's data. They have algorithms that watch those things, and they discovered that people were doing sexual things in the midnight in Nigerian TikTok. So they banned it. It's data they use to know. Like I said, if you don't want it to go out, do not log it. That is how data works. But they noticed that Nigerians are using the app for what they don't even use it for, what they don't want it to be used for, according to their own regulation. So they will block it. Even copyright too. You must not use someone else's content as your own content. And if it is an AI content, you must always signify that it is an AI content, because they don't want a situation where the content or the information is misleading. Because as we know, that is happening like a lot now in our continent, in our country, and even in the whole world. Global, major global regulations. Now, the reason why it is Europe, California, and Canada is because if you look at the user of people that the number of people that use internet the most, this is where they fall, especially the first two. And the reason is because they are more technologically advanced than us. How many people use? We think we use internet in Nigeria, but we don't. We don't actually. We are not plenty using internet in Nigeria. Over there, almost 90% to 95% you has access to internet. Nigeria, I don't even think we are up to 70% or 60. I don't even think we are even up to 50%. That's why you will see for them the highest follower for someone in Europe, you will see 200 million. Highest follower for someone in Nigeria, you will see about 20, 30 million. So the difference is so large. So they need all these things to protect themselves. We are not even there yet. We are still very small because we've not adopted most of all these things to for all this. We don't even have a centralized system. So all these regulations, we cannot have it as Nigeria, like, you get what I mean. So these guys, what they do is that they will not come to your country to come and say you must do this. They will wait for you to try and enter Europe. Once you enter Europe, you are going to face general data protection regulation. They will scrutinize what you are doing. See, applies to EU citizens' data. They will check what you are doing. And if peradventure, when you start, you are following best practice, then it gets to a point along the line, you now start doing shady things. The last one will come, heavy penalties. Because even anybody that wants to use data for anything will not tell you the one. They will wait for you to do it, then they will catch you. Then we have the California Consumer Privacy Act, US state level protection, consumer rights focus. Now, I don't know if anybody has noticed that sometimes they will just call Mark Zuckerberg to the Senate and start asking him certain questions about user data and all that. This is where that falls in, because they want to know. You have about the data of almost 1 billion people. Like, you're a very dangerous man, because it's more or less like knowing what 1 billion people are doing. That's the way they see it, and that is actually how it is. But these companies will not tell you that's how it is. But it's more or less knowing what 1 billion people like, what they dislike, what they talk about, what they don't talk about, who their wife is, who their child is. They basically know everything. So they will come down at you that, okay, you have this information about Americans. What are you doing with it? We actually need to know. They are not concerned about the information that is coming out from Nigeria at all. But once you want to put your app in their country, you have to adhere to all these things. Then for Canada too, personal information protection. China, Japan, they all have their own though, and their own is even stricter than these guys. So federal privacy law, consent-based approach, business accountability. All this now is almost the same. For business now, That's where I was talking about your account, your bank account, your cash flow. They will check it. They will see what you've been doing. Whether you are using your siphoning money from when you are in Nigeria, yeah, if that's allowed in Nigeria, you cannot do it over there because once they access your check your account and they see that there is a bit of runs there, they are going to be in problem. Now, this is for Europe. Core principles: lawfulness, fairness, transparency in data processing. That means when you collect the data, how you are storing it, what you are using it for, how you are using it, you must state it outright. You must state it outright. User rights. Users must be able to access their data, correct their data, erase their data. You must collect little data. You must collect little personal data because most people think email, name, address, those are the most important data. No, those are just tip of an iceberg. It's just like you now. They say, what class are you? You say GSS1. GSS1, yes, that is just piece of, because you come to school every day. What you do in school every day is actually the main data. So the initial data they give you that you give them is the normal username. But user data, your behavior, what you immediately you connect to your internet, what is the first thing you search? What's the first website you go to? If you notice, your browser remembers all these things. Once you type, okay, you go to Facebook a lot. Once you type F, it will complete it for you. All those things are not by accident. They are following you up by writing your data and caching it in such a way that the system remembers that this guy is going to this particular place. So let's make it easier for him. You think, yes, they are making it easy, it's fast, but how did they know that is what you want to press? That is the question. Organizational duties, data protection by design. This is what we've discussed when you are building. Like I said, where I worked then, they don't allow flash. The hospital, they don't allow flash. You cannot use flash for anything. In fact, it got to a point they wanted to go paperless, nothing paper at all. Everything is within the network. They even have a file system within the network where doctors can drop things for nurses, and nurses can go there and pick those documents, but it's documents, not sensitive information. Most likely organization information like memos and all that. So they drop that in the file system. They tell each other, I've dropped something for the nurses in. So the nurses go there, they check it. If they have to delete it, they delete it. If they don't have to delete it, they leave it. Enforcement: fines up to 4% of global revenue or 20 million. See how high the money is, 20 million euros. That's a lot of money. So you have to be very, very careful as an international company because you are not making small money and you are not dealing with small data. And this money, like I said, you are just one disaster away from crumbling as a company. Imagine you're a company of $5 million evaluation and you are being fined for $20 million. Where do you want to get the money? You have to declare bankruptcy, and that will be the end of your company. Regional approaches to privacy. Europe, you can see they've given you the different regions. You see, like I said, Europe they deal with GDPR as their major regulation body. Latin America, growing regulation inspired by GDPR. So they too are now learning to build these regulation bodies to protect user, because once you start having a lot of digital footprints, you have to start protecting your data because a lot can happen just by, like, you hear kidnapping here, kidnapping there. Imagine you have the boss and they are talking to somebody on the phone and you say, my boss is coming in from America today and you're going to land in Abuja and you're going to use road to come to Lagos. They can kidnap your boss on the road once they know the time, everything. So you too, you have to be careful with the kind of, because all these things I learned when I started working at that hospital. You don't even give anybody's phone number to anybody, no matter what. They will sack you if anybody calls anybody's private number and they discover that you are the one that gave the person. If they call CUG, fine, that's the organization's number, fine. But personal number, that you give somebody's personal number to an outsider, you will be fired. There's no two ways about it. That's how some companies are very, very strict. The United States sectoral approach with state level variation, no federal law. This means that each state out of the 52 states have individual data privacy laws, just as how they have different gun laws. They have different privacy laws too, each state, but they all just a little bit variation, but they all point to the same thing. Don't misuse our people's data. Now, for Asia Pacific, people in the Asia and Pacific Ocean region, diverse framework from strict China. You know, I mentioned China is actually very, very strict with data, and they use data a lot too, but they are very strict with you managing data, like very, very strict. Then you have Singapore. So what they are saying here is that Singapore has a less strict data policy. And the major reason why they have this is because they don't really do things with the outside world. They have like a closed system. They don't do things with Google. They hardly do things with anybody. So you can't know what's happening in their country. So because of that, it is very, they do like more or less like a closed system, you know. So they don't allow their services, they don't do cross region services, like no, they don't do that. Any social media they are using is just for their people. Any hailing, taxi or Uber or whatever, it's just for their people. They don't say the company wants to expand to Europe and wants to become a conglomerate. They don't do all those things. They just create a solution for their own people. So they are always very flexible because they know that any other person cannot have access to their data. And this also works with downloading software. Some software you cannot download in certain region. Some software you can download in certain region. You know, that's how all these things also work. Cross-border data transfer. The challenge, moving data between countries with different privacy law requires careful compliance. Organization must ensure adequate protection regardless of location. Yes, not because you are in Nigeria now. The Nigerian government does not really crack down on data protection. You now, or on some certain data laws, you now want to use the same scope for them in Europe. It will not work. I will use agricultural products. No, let me use Dangote's diesel as an example. Last week or during the week, Europe rejected Dangote's diesel because they said that the sulfur content is too high for their people based on certain regulation criteria. Dangote's diesel failed. But in Nigeria, here, you said it, nobody is checking anything. That's the level, I mean, that if you want to go outside the country with certain things, the discussion is different. There's a standard. The same with agricultural products. Once the agricultural product is in Nigeria, you can spread it anywhere, you know, do anything. You see them on the road. Yoruba will call them Araoko. You see them, see pepper on the floor. You can't try all those things abroad. Once they will carry you, you cannot be putting food stuff on the floor. You know, those are just little policy differences that makes a lot of differences. That's just in those practices. In data too, they have things like that. But because of the complexity of data, don't worry, you can't really know until you are about to do it. When they now give you the list, that is when you now see a lot of things. But if you are not there yet, you can't really know the effect of those things. But when you now want to go to those places and do things with them, that is where you now have all those check boxes to tick. Transfer mechanisms, adequate decisions, standard contractual clauses, binding corporate rules, certification schemes, code of conduct. Now, there's one thing that companies abroad do. They call it inclusiveness. That's when you now say something like, out of 10 employees, 4 have to be women, 3 have to be women. Some companies go as far as they want to give you investment in Europe. They now ask for your ananogram, your company's ananogram. They now discover that in your board of directors, they are all men. In your CEO, CTO, CMO, CFO, they are all men. And then they have inclusion rule that women must, they will not give you because you didn't obey certain rules that they will not tell you initially. Like I said, when you now want to go there, you will not see that there are so many things that we take for granted that they don't take for granted. It's just that their rules don't apply to us here, and our rules don't apply to them. Binding corporate rules. This binding corporate rule too is the same. There are certain rules, especially in the corporate world, over there that you must follow that we don't follow. You know, certification schemes. Over there, there are certain rules that you must train your staffs. You don't have all those things there. You train, you don't train. It's nobody's business. You know, I'm just using these things as an example of how we vary. You know, code of conduct. Well, code of conduct is typically the same, almost the same everywhere. Like the work from home culture now is another rule. You know, Nigerian CEOs don't actually like work from home. They believe their workers are not working. They are not working much. You know, but over there they've discovered that workers are more productive when they work from home. But some people don't still like it. So all these things now, I think that are different in different regions. Data localization requirements. What it means. Laws requiring data to be stored within national borders. It means, like I said, some countries, they call some things national treasure. Anything a country calls national treasure does not go out of that country, except you smuggle it out. There was a case of Squid Game where some people smuggled Squid Game from, I think, Japan to Korea. And a student and a teacher watched it. They caught them. I think they killed the teacher and they did something to the students. That is how serious these guys take these things, you know. But we don't bother now. Should be it's just movie. Let's just watch. While them over there, is a big thing for them. Oh. They don't want your movie. Keep it in your place. That is who they are. That is where they want their own people to be. If you understand what I mean. Countries with requirement: China, Russia, India, Vietnam. Like Russia now, Russia chased Starbucks out, burger whatever out of their country. Burger King from America, they say it's making their people fat. You know, so there are different requirements that different countries have of data too. You know, all these things, like I said, you cannot really know them until you are ready to operate in that country. Then they will now give you the list of things you must follow. As you are coming, you must follow all those things. If you are not following it from where you are coming from, all well and good. But if you are going to practice in their place, you must follow these rules, you know, and that is how it is for those countries. Business impact: increased cost, infrastructure need, complexity. Now, some of the things they might require, you might not have provision for it in your own country because you don't require it in your own country. But as you are coming to their own country, you must do those things, and sometimes it requires skilled people to do it. For example, if in your own country you don't have to collect age data from guests, but as you are going to China, China is telling you that you must collect age data. That means you have to create a database that now collects age data and correct some things, and you have to pay for that. So there will be increased cost. Infrastructure: you must change your database schema for those in China for age, you know, and compliance complexity too. If they tell you that maybe in Nigeria, yes, maybe people that use your software the most are between the age of 14 to 19. But China is telling you that, with what we are seeing your app do, 19 years old upward is the people that can use your app. Now, what will you do? You know, and you, when you are coming from, it is 14 to 19 that are your most active customers. But China is now saying, this thing is too complex for people of that age. No, we don't want. You need to, before we can accept it, you need to increase the age gap, the age because age requirement, because no, we cannot accept it, and you just have to do what you have to do because you are the one that want to make money. Privacy shield and adequacy, safe harbor. First EU data transfer framework validated by streams. Now, these are frameworks that they all came together to draft, and what they do is that for every time they draft it, they study it, they see the vulnerability, they come together. They study, they come together, they redraft. They come together, they redraft. So now they are saying that the current one now was drafted from 2020 and it's still the one they are using till now. They rely on SCC and supplementary measures. These documents are actually cumbersome. You can't really know it until you are ready to work with them or work for them. So you can't know almost all these things. But when you want to get into business with them, trust me, they will put it to your face and you are going to see most of all these things. That's why a lot of companies now in Nigeria need to start practicing these things because a lot of companies are not international standard. Even with their work, their nonogram, they are not international. It's so bad that they will even check your employee records, how you arrange your employees, your nonogram, everything. They're going to check everything before you now come to their country. So that's the way they are, and that's the way they protect themselves and data from external influence. Cultural perspective on privacy. This is exactly what I'm saying. Western view. Privacy as individual rights, emphasis on personal autonomy and control, which means that users want to be in charge of their data. They don't want you to use it for anything. They don't want you to collect what they're not supposed to collect. But let's be realistic. There's no way they can serve you better if they don't collect your behavioral data because they have to know what you are doing so that they can know how to sell to you. And also, every company is actually supposed to be doing that. Know what your customers are doing and know how you are going to sell to them. Eastern view, balance between individual and collective interest, social economy. This is where you have the communist, where the government is involved in what happens. You have the likes of Russia, you have the likes of China. This is what they practice. Individual and collective interest. That collective means government. What does the government want to collect? And what does the people want to give? Everybody will come to an agreement. Now, implication, different infestations shape regulations and user behavior globally. Exactly. The culture in China now, they don't do OnlyFans. So you cannot see any Chinese girls inside OnlyFans naked. It's not possible because their cultural behavior will affect their data regulation. So they will not do that. But in America and Europe, I don't know of Europe, but in America, is very, very allowed. So you can just post anything. They don't frown at it. But America frowns at it. So bad that WhatsApp does not even work in China. So ahead, they don't allow it straight on. But there are ways to have it. Global compliance challenges, conflicting requirements. Yes, like I said, what is required in one jurisdiction may be prohibited in another. That's where you have the cultural difference. Resource constraints. Maintaining compliance accountability framework is expensive. Yes, which means that's why I said that some things China wants, America does not want. Some things America wants, China does not want. And you want to operate in the two places, you have to satisfy the two. It's as simple as that. Rapid changes, new laws and interpretations emerge constantly. Yes, when TikTok was operating in America, and Americans saw how their data was being stolen by China, they needed to just come up with new policies that will crumble that and make TikTok stop operation in America as soon as possible. Enforcement uncertainty, penalty and enforcement vary widely by jurisdiction. Yes, everybody have different penalty for different laws according to what they allow in their country and how severe it is in their country. So all punishment are not the same. Some countries, you do some things, in your software or whatever is a nudge. Some will do that same thing. In fact, they won't even allow you to operate in that country again. So every country has what they allow and what they don't. International standard, ISO. That's why I mentioned this ISO is a very big certification from what I'm talking from cybersecurity point of view now. Because if you know it, like I said, companies will be looking for you. Like she is globally recognized, is see certification available. Exactly what I said. So once you have that certificate, they know that this one, he will know how to protect us. So everybody wants you because you know how to protect, they know how to shape their data so that they won't get into any trouble. Because companies get into trouble for unknown reason. For example, Daystar got into trouble with the federal government when with the CBN when they released a particular software called I think Zen or something. And what that software does, the software has the ability to hold money. And CBN now said, look, your license, the license we gave you, your platform should not have the ability to hold money for people. So take this fine, and they gave them fine. So if they want to implement that thing, they have to pay that fine. I think about 200 million naira or so. So those are the little things. Once you have this ISO certificate, don't worry, you are good, but it's very difficult to pass because it's a global, so it's very practical, it's hands-on, like see, risk based. So it's ethical hacking, cybersecurity certificate that if you can pass it, you are good. Now, ISO IEC 27711, privacy information management. That means after this, then you want to go higher, then you do another exam for this one. Extends privacy specific control, support compliance. So it's like the advanced or intermediate version of the first one. Now, these standards provide common framework for global organization. Yes, if you have it, they'll be looking for you because they know, this person can protect us. Sector-specific regulation, healthcare, like now I said it before, NHS, very important. NHS is UK. They have a unified system, which is the NHS. And that NHS now, they have a unified system that almost all their hospitals use, even all their hospitals, to store data and all that. So it is very important that each hospital and each nurse follows the rules so they don't create any data breach. Now, financial services, PCI, DSS, Brazil 111, local bank data protection. You see, this for financial services, now I said it initially that each sector has their own data regulation according to how they do things. Now, for finance, now, these are the body that or regulations that in charge of everything that is happening. Then this is global. In Nigeria now, I know there will be a body that deal with bank regulation that work closely with CBN. Then telecommunication too, yes. Like this, they know where you are as long as you have your SIM card on your phone. But they will not tell you they know where you are until the police brings a report that they need information about this particular phone number. Then they will release that your text messages, your phone calls, everything is recorded. Your location, the service towers you connected to, all these things are forms of data. And these are things they can use to catch you. No matter how much you are lying with your mouth, you've used your phone for something and they will check through and they are going to find you. So these are sector specific regulations and they deal with each sector and what, it's the activities that go on in each sector. Emerging global trends, stricter enforcement. And the reason why the enforcement are stricter is because technology too is advancing. They need stricter measures because as technology is advancing, data breaches are becoming very, very likely and very, very high now. So putting stricter enforcement means that companies will spend more in protecting people's data. So that is the best way they can. If the hacker may be in Pakistan and get data in return in America, it's going to be very difficult to even catch him in Pakistan. So what they do is they put pressure on their own organizations to, protect, to put more energy or more effort or more resources in protecting people. Enhance user rights. More countries are adopting GDPR like individual rights. That's consent. That's the one for UK. That's the consent user data protection. That means the user has the right to protect, erase, audit, change data, and the data must be minimal as possible. AI regulation, new framework addressing algorithmic decision making. Yes, they know they have to protect, they have to put certain regulation of AI because in the actual sense, AI actually has no digital limit. Anything you want it to do for you, it will actually do it. If you don't put these regulations and limitations, anything you want it to do, it will actually do it. So these regulations are the things they put now to avoid certain incidences. Then children's privacy, yes. Okay, let me give you an example. There's this cartoon, Piper Peg or something. I think it's very popular in America. Now, what this cartoon is for children. So one day, the man was showing his wife, the child was watching it, and all of a sudden they started talking about two mothers, that's two women being married and having a child. And that scene only lasted for 8 seconds throughout the whole episode. When the mother saw it, she was surprised and she said she never knew it was there. And the man said, yes, you can't know. They did it, like that. So you have to also watch what your children are watching because they don't know anything. It's what they watch, they eventually know. And most of all these things, you have to be very strict in what your child is watching because sometimes you might think it's entertainment, but it's not just entertainment, it's also information, and the children, they are raw, they are new, they will just be absorbing everything the way they are seeing it. So that's why now in Australia they ban children below 16 from having social media. I think it is a very good thing, and I think they should do it to Nigeria because I don't know what a 16-year-old wants to be doing online. They're supposed to be reading for WAEC. But these are things that if our government will do it, fine. If they don't do it, we just have to train our children on these things ourselves. Now, best practices for global compliance. Privacy by design, we discussed this. Put privacy and security into what you're doing. Data mapping, that's when you know where your data is, what your data is doing, and how it flows from where to where. Highest standard approach, comply with strictest applicable regulation globally. And this is because if you don't do it in your country, when you are going out, you will do it. And it might also hinder you because if they know you don't do it in your country, they might frown at you and not even allow you come. Because if you want to, most companies that want to start in another country will most likely get investment from that country they are starting. And for you to get investment, there are certain things they will check, before you can start operating. Regular assessment, conduct privacy impact assessment for new initiatives. Yes, sit them down. If you get new employers or new workers, sit them down. Create a whole presentation slide for data privacy so that they know that if you mess up, these are the things that will happen. Do not, because where I worked, the hospital, they will sit you down and you are going to have a full 30 minutes on data protection. They will be asking you questions, you will be asking questions, a full presentation, like a proper this kind of presentation on data protection. They don't joke with it. They will tell you what they don't do, what they do. Everything is there. New people must adhere because if you don't, it's detrimental. Like I said, you are just one scandal away from your company from crashing. Training and awareness. Yes, train your users, your workers on how to understand data privacy and even understand what data privacy is. Sometimes data privacy can be as simple as your boss calls you on the phone and you pick it in front of crowd and you are talking in such a way that 4 or 5 people can hear. It can be as simple as that, basically, because you don't even know who is listening to what. And these things have been have been actually proven in several movie case scenario where the spy is around, you pick a call. You think all those things are movies until it happens to you. Well, some of us don't hold high position or we are not people of important duty. So most of all these things we can't know and we don't know the severity until you start holding important information. Then you now discover that even the government will protect you because they don't want those information to go out. So it is very important to educate your staffs on information. Like I said, the company I work, they don't even want you to give personal information of anybody to anybody. Mind your business. If they ask you, you don't know. Don't give people's information to anybody. So all these things are things that you must always educate your staffs about. Even hospitality too, they have their own too. Hospitality, very, very important. You cannot take picture in the lobby because some people they are coming there for things their wife and family should not know. Then you now snap picture there, you snap their face. But you now post it online. Their wife sees that they are chilling in that hotel. Meanwhile, they are supposed to be in Kaduna. Problem have started. So all those little things, we might not know it now, but when those things happen, you know, and trouble starts stirring up, that is when you now realize that a lot of all these things are very, 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 very important. Yes, data protection officer role and responsibility. Every company, even if you don't have a data protection officer, you are supposed to have a company that audits your data. You know, that is the way it works now in Nigeria, I believe. If you don't have one sitting in your company, at least I think there is a certificate they give you that, okay, yes, we've audited these people. And I think it's periodically. Money will serve as contact point for authorities. Yes, because if they discover you're misusing data, they will report you. Coordinate with stakeholders. Yes, required by for certain increasingly common globally. Yes, so that they will know that this person, the data that we gave this person is actually using it well. Very, very important. Like data users are giving this company, they are using it where they are not using it for malicious purposes. They are not selling it. Another important, they are not selling it. They are not copying it out. They are not sharing it and all those things. So all those things are very, very important. International cooperation, bilateral agreement, country to country data sharing framework. Yes, yes, country to country can share, but most time because of cultural differences, like I said, America now cannot really have agreement with China on data because their cultural differences is very, very high. So they would rather China would rather stay on their own than decide to do anything. Like for example, TikTok in China is very different from TikTok in Nigeria. Basically, that's the pure example why bilateral agreements will hardly work because every country have except Europe now, France and Spain, they understand each other small. They can now work together. But say America and China, America and Russia, they are too far off, in terms of culture, so they cannot actually work. Research collaboration, academic and policy research. Yes, that also works, and that works for people that countries that understand each other. Actually, all these things cannot work for countries that don't understand each other or have high cultural difference or they are not moving in the same direction when it comes to policies. They cannot do things together. Multilateral forums, yes, OPEC, that's the yes, OPEC, UN, yes, all these are global policy makers, and they all have different. I don't know where OECD is, but I know APEC, I know UN. Now, UN discussion on privacy, yes, they come together and they discuss that, okay, this is happening, let's create a policy globally where all countries that are part of us must follow. Law enforcement, cross-border investigation cooperation. We saw how they arrested our young brother Hush Puppy, and that was based on cross-border, investigation cooperation where Interpol and CIA were like, and FBI were like, this guy is terrorizing us too much. We need to cooperate and work together and arrest this guy. And they did that by sharing information with each other. The same data thing we are talking of. Okay, this is where he is going to, these are his cars, these are his bank accounts, and they will not do anything. They will just go into everything and be checking it small till they get to the point that even you, if they show you everything that they've gathered, even you cannot say you didn't do it. You just keep quiet because they will gather information, they will gather data about you to the point that you will think it's God that is watching you because there's no how everything you do use a digital footprint. That's why if you don't want it to happen, don't record it. If you don't want it to go out, do not log it. That's what I always tell people. Industrial standards, self-regulatory framework and codes. Yes, in different industries, like I said, based on their activities and practices, have standard that you must follow. If not, you are going to miss it and you are going to actually fall out. Case study, global tech company, one challenge, operates in 50 plus countries with very privacy law, like I said, implemented GDPR as baseline, added local requirements, centralized privacy team, regional compliance officer, automated tools. Now, for these two, they are saying that, okay, you operate in 50 countries that have different laws. Now, what you can do is you can now say, okay, which one is most accepted in most of these places? It is the GDPR because it is user focused. So you don't really have problem. Now, because that is user focused, then you now go to the countries themselves, then you add little things that they allow and remove little things they don't allow according to those countries. Centralized privacy team, regional compliance officers, automated tools. Yes. So now, some automated tools now work in certain regions, some don't work in certain regions. So you centralizing them now means that you are doing in such a way that each of them can access these things without disturbing one another and without breaking any law of any country. That is a very important factor. Now, what are the results of bringing all these things together? Because regional compliance officer is like, okay, for Asia, you have a regional compliance officer there. For Asia, you have one there. So anything you are doing in Asia, that person is in charge of the data compliance documentation there. So it's one that will tell you, okay, these things can fly according to this region. This is allowed. This is not allowed. Then what is the result? Consistent global protection, reduce compliance costs, and increase user trust. And this is because for every region, you are giving them what they want according to data. You are not using Nigerian law to serve in America. You are not using American data law to give them service in China. It will not work. They will chase you out of their country because there are certain things they don't allow. So they will not allow you just start doing things. Future global data privacy, movement towards common global standard and principle. Yes, you must always move towards. That's why there are some for example, if you work for multinational companies, you will discover that they are always better than Nigerian-based companies because they follow user user and employee first scenario. That's what when you say something like I don't want a toxic work environment, so each employee has each worker has a say, they can talk freely, nobody's going to talk down on anybody. All those little things, matter too. Technology solution, privacy enhancing technology enabling compliance. Yes. This now, let's say all your CFO, CMO, they all have tokens that they must use to access certain things. That is a technology solution because they have the highest access to information. You can't just let them log in just like that. So they will all have tokens that they will be moving with, like a flash drive that they will all be moving with. It's so even bad that let's say you want to have a meeting, they must all come with that token because before they can open the documents, they must present that token, and that token must work. So once that happens, they know that, okay, it is you. You cannot forget it at home. There are so many things like that too. User empowerment, data control, and transparency for user. Yes, when users feel that, okay, we can trust these people with our information, they will even give you more, and they will be comfortable using your, software. Accountability, increased organizational responsibility and liability. Yes, the organization must be accountable for your data no matter what, even if you are even if you are complicit, that is, you allowed even something should happen. The company, for example, now, if the company notice that anytime you always log in from Lagos Island, Nigeria, then they now see a login coming from Russia, all of a sudden, they will block it because it is not an area that they know that you always log in. They will block it because they will have checked all your apps. And if you ask, how did they know I always log from Nigeria? They are collecting this data. So when they see somebody logging in from Moscow, Russia, within you that you logged in Lagos Island at 2 o'clock, at 3 o'clock you are logging in from Moscow. How did you reach Moscow in 1 hour? This person is not the same person. If you understand what, so all these little things too are things that the organization used to, check. Key
Um,
takeaway.
Mr. Toby, okay, key takeaways. I would guess like you're rounding up already because this is almost 2 p.m. and we already have people leaving the call. So if you can take a bit.
So when should I stop, please?
Yeah, the class is meant to end by 2 p.m., but it can take just few minutes extra and we should call
Okay.
it.
Okay, I will be fast. Okay, key takeaway, global complexity, data privacy regulation vary. Yes, worldwide, we've said that. GDPR influence, and that's because they actually focus on they are user oriented. So, the organization will even prefer them because they focus on the users rather than the organization because they want to protect the users more because the users are the ones that will be affected for any data leak. Compliance strategy, adopt highest standard map data flow, implement privacy by design. Yes, that's when, if you are building, you must always build with data protection in mind. Ongoing revolution, privacy not going to change, continue monitoring is essential. Yes, this is correct because you must always continue to monitor users and hackers and everybody so that you can actually know how to protect them and also how to prevent attackers. Business imperative. Global privacy compliance is both legal requirement and competitive advantage. Yes, competitive advantage in the sense that if two companies are going into Europe, one has been compliant and knows about compliance since the other doesn't, it slows the other one down and it gives you advantage because you can easily enter the country and resume operation, but the other company has a lot to do. Managing enterprise risk and compliance. Enterprise is fundamental, understanding risk type and framework, regulatory standard and obligation, assessment, mitigation and monitoring, government, implementing effective control. Enterprise risk management is a comprehensive approach of identifying, assessing, and managing risks across an entire organization. It integrates risk management into strategic planning and daily operation. EMR. So what this is saying is that, okay, what are the risks that can happen in this our organization? I will use bank for example. Bank knows that if somebody should access our internet, we are done. They can access our network and all that. So they don't allow Wi-Fi. That's basically identifying and accessing and managing a risk that they know that can affect them. Key components, risk identification and assessment, like I said, risk mitigation strategy, they don't allow Wi-Fi, they use cabled internet, continuous monitoring, see if anybody is propagating the network wirelessly, compliance integration, make sure every point, there is a Cat6 cable, where you can easily connect to the desktop and browse, but you cannot propagate that internet to the network. It's so bad that some you don't even allow phones. I know some banks don't allow phones. Stakeholder communication. Yes, these are the big guys, they too must understand what's happening and based on their own assessment too, must be able to contribute and know what's happening in terms of data protection because they too would need, because data protection, them too will actually need a level of constraints and a level of process them to have to go through to get some things done. Types of enterprise risk, cybersecurity risk, data breaches, ransomware, we've discussed this. Compliance risks, we've discussed this too. Financial risks, market volatility, credit issues, liquidity challenges, and fraud. Yes, market volatility means a company's shares can move from 1,000 to 600 within 1 minute, and that is bad. Liquidity, credit issues. Yes, sometimes if you have certain issues within your organization, you will not be able to get this credit. Very important. Liquidity challenges, that has to do with money. How much do you have at hand? How much assets do you have? And fraud, we all know what fraud is. Reputational risk, like I said, you are just one scandal away from your company crumbling, basically. Compliance risk, regulatory violation, legal penalty, and other anti-standard. Like I said, when the compliance officer comes and sees that these people, they are not doing what they are supposed to do, they will report you and you most likely pay a heavy fee. Operational risk, process failure. Like I said, where I was working before, don't bring flash drive. If they see flash drive with you, it's an operational risk because you can copy something into it and take it to and be using it to blackmail. It was so bad that that time there was a worker that actually prepared an invoice and he used his name and account number to want to collect money from the person. So some of these things happen that if you don't, mitigate all these things, you will actually see strategic risk, poor decision, market changes, and competitive threats. Yes, your competitors can actually want to sabotage you, hack you, reveal certain information about you just to mess you up. The risk management process, we've talked about this risk identification. Like I said, the banks, we don't want Wi-Fi. Assessment, what happens if there is Wi-Fi? People can connect to the Wi-Fi, they know the password and hack our servers. Risk prioritization, okay, out of all the risks that we have measured, which one is the highest that we need to spend more resources on to protect, and which one is the lowest that we don't need much, we just need little guidelines. For example, bringing your phone into the office. I know some bank workers do that, some don't. Just by knowing who to bring and who not to bring already clarifies the risk prioritization. Risk mitigation, that's when you implement control. Okay, you can bring phone, you cannot bring phone inside because of what you do. And because of what you do, you can bring because you have to pick calls and all that. Monitoring and review. So when you monitor and you are like, okay, even these ones that are bringing their phones in, they are still doing some shady things. You can now say, okay, with what we've studied, we are going to block everybody from bringing phone. Something like that. So all those things now follow process. And as the result comes, that's what will determine how, these things are mitigated. Risk assessment metrics. Organization use risk metrics to evaluate prioritize threats based on likelihood and impact. Where less 10% chance, unlikely, possible, likely, almost certain. Significant minimal effect, minor, moderate. Yeah, these are risks and these are the things that it can create. But these things are done by it depends on what you regard as risk because different organizations regard different things as risk, basically. Compliance referring to adhering to law, regulation, standard, internal policy that govern an organization's operation. While compliance matter, avoid legal penalties and fines, yes. Protect customer data and privacy, maintain business reputation. Like I said, you are just one data leak away. Ensure operational continuity, yes. There is a process that works and is sustainable. So once you continue using the process, you get result and avoid accidents. Build stakeholder trust. Yes, people can trust you. Investors can trust your solution. Compliance challenges. Complex regulatory landscape. That's when you have different data compliance rule for different countries and different regions. Frequent regulations changes, yes. Some age changes, some can say, okay, before we allowed 17, now we don't want to allow 17 again, and you have to comply. Global operations complexity, like I said, some things are allowed here, some things are not allowed here. Resource constraint, yes. To implement some things that are allowed in another place or they require, you might have to pay professionals to get it done for you, and that might cost a lot. So if you don't have the money, you cannot operate there. Technology integration needs it's the same as if you have resource constraint, you cannot implement any technology integration. Yeah, these are the major. We've talked about these guys. I don't think we didn't talk about SOX, Pisma. These are just the bodies. Like this PCI now is for card payment. So you must adhere to this. Your like this does not concern a normal, but all fintechs that operate in those countries must adhere to this PCI. Then SOX, financial reporting corporate this means that your audit, you must always publish your audit, your income, everything must always be published. And this is the um, organization response. Then FISMA, Federal Information Security Management Act. So these are all compliance framework that will always monitor you and check if you're actually complying. Governance risk and compliance. A GRS is an integrated approach that aligns government risk and compliance activity, leadership, policies, and decision-making structure that guide the organization. Yes, every organization has its own constitution that everybody follows, its own rules. Apart from the government rules, each one have their own rules, and they have how they manage risks, identify. Like I said initially, the banks, that is the way they do their own. Sometimes you want to transfer big money, you go to the counter, you're not doing of the account, they record you of the account. So all these little things are things they use, to manage it as little as they can. Compliance, adhering to laws, regulation and internal policies across operations. Yes, you must always adhere to law because if you don't, it can be interesting, but the day they will catch you, it is going to cause a very big problem for you. Benefit of integrated GRC. Organization benefits, streamline process and reduce redundancy. Yes, you will not do the extra things. Nobody will do the extra things. Everybody will be focused on um, results orientation, better resource allocation. Yes, you can manage your resources because things that are not needed will not be done. Improve decision making. Those guidelines now will tell you the kind of decisions you are supposed to make and the kind of steps you are supposed to take. Stronger stakeholder, enhanced risk visibility. Yes, once you have those rules in place, you can easily know what you are doing wrong or what you are going to do wrong. Stronger stakeholder confidence. Investors will trust you. Companies, other partners will trust you better. Reduce compliance costs. That means even if you want to violate anything, it's going to be small. It's not like Paystack that has to pay 200 million. Faster incident response, yes. Because we have set up these standards, a little change is easy for you to see. Constant policy enforcement. You must always make sure your workers comply to all your rules. Very, very important. Automated reporting capacity. If anything is being taken or stolen by any way, shape, or form, there should be an automated way of reporting. And most of the time, this is done through logs. Because if anybody log in, change anything, do anything, the log will write it down that this person did something. Proactive risk management. That's why I said where you employ people, hackers to check, you know, they are going to come in and try and break down your system and see, okay, what is really going on and what's vulnerable in the system. Risk mitigation strategies, risk avoidance, remove that create unacceptable risk. Yes, eliminate activities that create unacceptable risk. Example, not entering high risk market. Yes, if you enter high risk market, yes, there's high reward too if it works for you. But if it doesn't work, you are going to have a very big loss. Risk reduction. Implement controls to minimize likelihood of impact. Installing firewalls and encryption. Yes, like what we've been discussing since firewalls by creating certain rules for the application, encryption at rest and in movement, how data flows and how it is being encrypted. Risk transfer, shift risks to third party through insurance or yes, let's say cyber insurance policy means that let's say if I lose 100 million. I've insured my data. That means the insurance company is eligible to give me maybe 50% or 60% of that loss. So then, because of that, they will provide cyber security guys for you so that they don't have to pay heavy money. So it's a very good way of protecting yourself. Risk acceptance, clear the minor risk within tolerance level. Yes, you must always know that, okay, within my processing and what I'm doing, there are certain things that will happen that should be within acceptable range. Once it is above acceptable range, you have to flag it. Risk management, key risk indicator, 24 hours incident report time. 24 hours is actually too long. Average time to detect and respond to security incidents. System uptime, yes, 90% of the time. 90% of the time, your system must be up, must remain operational. Compliance violation, number of breaches per quarter. That means they should not be more than 30. If it's more than 30, then most likely penalty, $2 million risk exposure. That's I think that's the worldwide total potential financial impact to identify risk. That if this certain risk, if you are at risk of this certain thing, you are most likely going to lose this certain amount of money. These are for companies that operate with international standard in mind, because they deal with big money and big data. So these things are very, very serious for most of them. Implementing a compliance program, yes. Establishing policies, develop clear policies aligned with regulatory requirement and organizational goals. Yeah, this is what we're talking about knowing in your sector what are the things you do, and you create a policy around that so that you protect yourself and your users. Assign responsibilities, designate compliance officer and define rules. Yes, you have to get officers that will always check and balance your compliance. If not in your office, you can get agencies that will come periodically to do that. Train employees, yes, you have to train them to know how to use data and how to comply, because if anything should happen, it is you that will pay for it, not them. You, the owner of the business, rather. Monitor and audit, conduct regular assessment to ensure ongoing. The agency have to be coming once in a while to check, and once they check anything they tell you, you update based on anything they tell you, so that your penalty will not increase when next they come, because they too are going to give reports. Third-party risk management, why it matters. Organizations increasingly rely on vendors, suppliers, and partners who may introduce risk. Third-party breaches can expose sensitive data. That's why I said about hardware. Who are you buying from? That thing you bought, the firmware. How does it affect your whole infrastructure? Is it vulnerable? Is that Firmware version vulnerable. If it's vulnerable, how can I patch it? Management approach, the same goes. What I just said. You have to access them. Contractual security requirement. Is it that you'll be coming to patch it for us by yourself, or we have to pay you? Incident report planning, the same thing. We call you, are you going to come and look at it for us? Are you going to do it remotely? Am I going to pay you? Performance review. How well is the hardware doing? How well is the software doing when we are using it or when we use it? Technology solutions, GRC plan, integrated software solution like ServiceNow, RSA, and metric stream that centralize risk and compliance management. Yes, all these things are things you plug in into your infrastructure. So they check and always audit your infrastructure to check if there is a place where you are not being compliant. Automation tools, automated compliance monitoring, reporting, and control testing to reduce manual effort they are almost the same. They are almost the same. Analytics and AI, advanced analytics and machine learning to predict risks. These are all things you have to integrate into your structure, and they will be doing the monitoring for you. But most of all these things you pay most likely heavily for them. But sometimes, if you are working or if you are an international company, they are actually needed. Incident response and business continuity. Effective risk management requires plan of responding to incident and maintaining operations. Incident response plan, detection and analysis, containment strategy. That's how you want to stop it. Like I said, first thing, remove the server from the internet first, or just shut it down first. Let everything rest. Eradication procedure. Once you shut it down, then you cannot isolate, then see what's happening. Recovery process, maybe you remove everything, you create a new server and you create backup snapshot and move everything to a new server where the attacker does not know the DNS or even know exists. Post-incident review, know what happened and how it happened and how you can correct it for next time. Business continuity plan, critical function identification, know what your business cannot do without in case it goes down. Those things must be up. Backup and recovery system. Like I said, you must always have backup so that if anything happens, you can crash that server and open another server and just restore and everything works fine. Alternative work arrangements, communication protocols, regular testing and updates. All this we've actually discussed. Building risk-aware culture. Leaders, effective management requires more than policies and technology. It demands a culture where every employee understands their role in managing risk. Leadership commitment. Executive must champion management and model desired behavior. Like I said, CFO, CMO might be required to use a physical USB stick to log in, because of their own level of clearance. Clear communication, regular updates on risk policies, and so you must always communicate compliance rules and any policy that you make or anything you are seeing is creating risk. You must always communicate to everybody in terms of memo so that I give clear instruction on what to do. And that instruction will lead to training and awareness. If the instruction requires you to physically train the workers to make sure they don't do it again, fine. And if it's just for them to be aware, fine. Accountability, clear consequences for violations and recognition for compliance excellence. Yes, they must always know the penalty to every action they take, if they are doing it on purpose or not. All these things is very consequential and they must always know. Real-world case studies. Target database, incident hacker access target network through a third-party ad-hoc vendor, compromising 40 million credit cards and 70 million customer records. See, like I was saying, third-party risk management is critical. Anything you are bringing in, you must know that okay, this company what are they? Are they known for data breaches? If they are known for data breaches and you still use them, you have to just blame yourself. Network segmentation is essential. I discussed that different VLAN, your camera will be in different VLAN, your IoT devices will be in different VLAN, and your phone, laptop, browser will be different VLAN. So that if hacker should hack one, you won't have access to the others. Monitoring and alerts must be acted upon. Yes, if you receive any alert, you must act quick because that is the first line of defense. If you don't act quick, in a short time, the result can be detrimental. Incident response plans need testing. Yes, everything you want to do, case scenario must have been practiced. That's why I said companies get hackers to try and hack and recreate the scenario so that they will know how to respond. And the impact of this is $160 million was lost. CEO resigned. You know, uh, based on the head is the one that is going to take the fall for it, no matter what, no matter who does it. It might be a worker that led to that compromise, but the head is going to take the fall for it. And long-lasting reputational damage. Like I said, they are one scandal away from crumbling as a company, basically. Emerging trend in risk management, cloud risk management, addressing security and compliance challenges in multi-cloud environment. These are for very high level cloud architecture risk. AI powered risk management and risk analytics. Yes, using machine learning to predict and prevent risk before they materialize. This is like plugging AI to your system where AI analyzes your own system, that tells you these are wrong, these are wrong. So you have to actually work on them. Cyber risk quantification, translating technical risk to financial terms for better decision. Yes, so you have to actually, for some stakeholders, they won't understand your English. If the money they will understand, if you tell them, this thing, you can lose $100 million, they will understand. But if you are speaking a lot of English, the SSL, the this, the this, they don't understand it. So you must always tell them that thing, that pinpoint. And for stakeholder, money is the only pinpoint that they understand, basically. ESG risk and integration, incorporating environmental, social, and governance factor into risk framework. Yes. Um, environmental, where are your servers stored? Is it a place that there's security, there's camera, whoever enters? Social, who are the people that you allow to enter? Governance factor, what does government say about your business in the first place? And what are their compliance rules based on what you are doing? Because if they come and you see that you are not even compliant with them and you comply with everybody except them, you are in trouble. Zero trust architecture. Implement never trust, always verify security model. Yes, let's say MFA now. Um, let's say your CEO, it requires your CEO to always impute certain code before certain things are done. So because he's traveling to UK now, you now said that let's remove it. So you remove it now and hacking happens. Because it doesn't have that security now, everything will just go smoothly. But assuming you left it, always verify. There's nothing like if he's there, call him when he's available, then you can do what you need to do. Very, very important. Key takeaways, integrated approach. Effective enterprise management requires integrating governance risk, and compliance activities across organization. Continuous risk management is not a one-time activity, but requires ongoing monitoring, access, because things change, adaptation happen, and new vulnerabilities come up. So you must always watch out. Modern GRC platform and automation tools are essential for managing complex risk and compliance. So yes, if you are working and you are working in your life, it is not just
Mr. Toby, are you there? I think your audio actually off. Uh, this is 20 minutes past 2 p.m. Please, we can bring the class to a wrap now. Can you hear me, Mr. Toby? Oh, okay. Please, I think you should fix your audio.
Yeah, so I'm back. My mic died, so the battery died, so I just switched my mic. Sorry about that. So let me just continue since I'm almost done. So for effective protection, why enabling such on competitive advantage, like I said, if you have been mindful of this from the onset, yeah, it will be easier for you to move across countries and for people to trust you. But if you don't always keep it in mind, it will be very difficult to implement because when you build a structure and you want to now go international, it means there is a foundation already. So it means, and if data protection, data privacy, risk management is not part of your foundation, it's going to, that means you have to go back to the foundation and build it with it. And that can be very stressful and expensive. Question and answer. Thank you very much. Wow. So any question, please? Any question, please? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. No question.
So any question, ma'am?
No, no question from my side.
Okay. I'm actually done.
All right, all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Toby. Please let's all appreciate Mr. Toby in the chat box. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Please appreciate Mr. Toby in the chat box, please.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to
Yes,
serve
thank
you
you so
guys.
much. Thank you, thank you.
No problem.
Yes, sir. So we have the attendance link and the feedback form. Please let's endeavor to fill that as we bring this class to a close. And let's all start preparing for our exams. The other details are across the group chat. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
No problem.